Service with a Hug by Andy Collett. Read by me, Andy Collett. Service with a Hug, because customers want to feel loved. 30 ways to transform your customer's experience and your own. Dedicated to Phyllis Hobbs, the first person to give me a hug. Introduction. What is Service with a Hug all about? Carol runs her own small business. It's a gift shop in Scotland. She said, "One of my customers told me that when they visit the shop, they feel as if they've been hugged." I'm talking about creating a feeling that keeps customers coming back, an interaction that leaves them feeling better. When I asked Carol to describe how she achieves that feeling, she thought long and hard and, in a seemingly intuitive way, just said, "It's different for every customer." I wasn't satisfied. I wanted examples. I drilled down. Eventually, I discovered that she connects with her customers by giving them a warm welcome, by simply asking them how they are today, and really meaning it. Rocket science? I think not. Powerful? Incredibly so. Why did I write this book? Because I'm passionate about customer service. For the past 20 plus years, my business has specialized in training and coaching frontline staff and their managers to create an amazing experience for their customers. I get a huge buzz out of seeing customers having a great time, seeing them smiling, laughing, and spreading the word. As a customer myself, I enjoy being on the receiving end of great service, and I'm always quick to praise those who get it and those who give it. How can this book help you? Let me answer that question with a question. What made you choose this book? Write down your answer somewhere. That way, as you read, your mind will link the words on the page with your goal or reason. When we have clarity around our goals, it's amazing what can show up. So please, take a moment and do it now. It's important. Okay, so now you've done that, let me ask, what will that give you? Write that down too. Part 1. Handle skillfully. Any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex, and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. Albert Einstein. What I've found when studying people who are really successful, in whatever field, is that they tend to keep things simple by mastering the fundamentals rather than making things complicated. So part 1 is all about developing the skills needed to provide the foundation on which to build. Even though you may feel that some of the concepts are just plain common sense, if you were to purely apply the ideas suggested in part 1, you would stand out as being so far ahead of the mainstream. Your customers would really notice and remember you. As was once said, common sense isn't that common. If you're already familiar with many of these essential elements, I'm sure you'll appreciate the value of revisiting these primary skills that helped you to create your success to date. However good we are, we can always be better. We can always do more and be more for our customers and benefit ourselves in the process. So here we go. Let's dive in. Acknowledge early. First impressions matter. Experts say we size up new people in somewhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. Elliot Abrams. It makes sense that we begin by acknowledging our customers. If we don't get the first impression right, we may not have the opportunity to share any of the great stuff that we love delivering to our customers. Acknowledging a customer quickly is essential, and we're not talking about pouncing. Most customers can feel the pushy energy behind that. We need to acknowledge in a way that is warm, gentle, friendly, and sincere. And acknowledgements need to be offered whether meeting a customer face-to-face, or on the telephone, or replying to an email, or on social media. What's our goal at this starting point? What are we trying to achieve? Firstly, a positive first impression. And to put the customer at ease, they might be a little nervous, defensive, or closed. To establish a connection and to begin a comfortable conversation. If we operate in an environment where customers enter our premises, for example, a retail shop, car showroom, or restaurant, how long do customers need to be left alone? It's impossible to generalize, as it's going to be different every time. Some customers demand instant attention. Others prefer to be left alone to wander around and to get a feel for what's on offer. So as the service provider, what can we do to get this right for each customer every time? We've all seen what happens when a customer walks into a shop and meets an assistant who immediately asks, "Can I help you?" This question often triggers the conditioned response, "No thanks, I'm just looking," even if they actually are interested in making a purchase. It's important for the service provider not to come across as pushy, as the customer can feel swooped upon, and they may interpret the question as, "What would you like to buy today?" The likelihood is it's too early in the process for the customer to feel ready to make a decision. The first step is simple. Make them feel welcome. How about just saying hello and introducing ourselves and offering to be available if required? Something like, "Hello, my name's Joe. If you need any help with anything, just let me know." Most customers will pick up on the different energy of this approach and begin to let their barriers down. Carefully observe the body language of customers as they wander around. If they start to look around for some assistance, that's our cue. If they start heading for the door, it's worth asking them if they've found what they were looking for. If they haven't made a purchase, we may have an opportunity to help them. When we're visiting a customer at their workplace or home, once again, a warm greeting is in order. "Hello, I'm Andy. It's really good to meet you," followed by a little small talk to put them at ease and build trust. Getting straight into business the moment we step through the door, whether it's to give a quotation for fitting a window blind, repairing their computer or washing machine, is equivalent to pouncing. Small talk might include asking them how their day has been so far, or showing interest in something in the room, a trophy or a picture, anything that may have significance. This approach can go too far and have a negative impact if customers feel we've crossed the line in terms of privacy or relevance. So keep it brief and appropriate to the situation. Also, as we move into work mode, be sure to be respectful of the customer space and time by asking permission. "Is it okay if I... ... On the telephone, it's not just about answering the call quickly, it's also about how we respect that person's time once we've begun the conversation. We quickly get a sense of how the customer is feeling. If they seem rushed or irritated, it's worth checking out how they're fixed for time. They could be calling us during their lunch break. They could have experienced frustrations getting through to speak to us. Acknowledging that, apologizing if it feels appropriate, will most likely result in the customer feeling heard and will enable the conversation to proceed on a more positive note compared to us ploughing on regardless. And of course, if the customer has a particularly chirpy demeanor, it's worth acknowledging that too. Probably not using that description though. For those times When we're making an outbound telephone call, again, it's worth acknowledging early that we may have called at a bad time and asking them if they have time to speak. The customer will appreciate our thoughtfulness and will normally be happy to arrange a more convenient time when we can have a higher quality conversation. Action tips: acknowledge early. Offer a friendly greeting and acknowledge every time. Be gentle in your approach to avoid appearing pushy. Treat customers and their work or home spaces with respect. Connect. The business of business is relationships. The business of life is human connection. Robin S. Sharma. What does it mean to connect with another human being? And why is that important in customer service situations? We've all experienced being a customer when there was a lack of connection. How was that for you? Normally it's totally forgettable. Or perhaps it was so poor that you decided never to go back. You told others and were even moved to contact the manager. Connection is not about being trained to say the right words. That's a bit fake, and customers see through it in an instant. Eye contact. So much of our connection with others involves eye contact. Pretty much everyone will tell you that eye contact is a really important aspect of communication. With great eye contact, we come across as more engaged, friendly, and confident. Also, it provides us with a lot of non-verbal information about how the other person is feeling. Focus. Really connecting with another person telegraphs, you are the only person I'm interested in at this moment. That means no side conversations with colleagues, no taking phone calls, or responding to any other kind of distraction. And if we get interrupted, apologize to the customer and ask permission to respond to the interruption. Afterwards, apologize again. A great resource is the Pike Place Fish video, in which the employees talk about being there for their customers. The employees entertain and get up close and personal with their customers, who love the playful way that team members are selling their produce at a fish stall. Search online if you're curious to find out more. Smiling. A smile is an invitation. It sends a non-verbal message. I am sincere, open, welcoming, and interested in assisting you. If you're not someone who has a naturally smiley face, not everyone is blessed in this way, avoid pretending. Pretend smiles tend to look more like a grimace. Try interacting with customers' pets or family members, if present, which offer great opportunities to produce a smile. Your colleagues can probably help too, through banter and playfulness. Bring a light-hearted attitude to work. I've heard some people grumbling, "Oh, if you worked where I work." And I get it. However, we get to choose how our day pans out. Do we want to enjoy our day, or would we rather be miserable? We decide. If we want to enjoy our day, it may take a little effort at the start, but the enjoyment soon gathers momentum, a bit like a snowball. Customers pick up on energy. When they enter a happy place, they feel it and they love it. Just make sure that if there's laughter going on, we always include the customer in the hilarity, otherwise they might suspect that we're laughing at them. Rapport. Let's just define it as personal connection with warmth. There are many ways to achieve a warm connection. Think about some of the ways in which you've created rapport in your life. How about when you're not at work? How do you show those around you that they matter to you? And how do you create a sense of connection with your customers and colleagues? Jot down what comes to mind and we'll refer back to this. Action tips for Connect. Smile and make eye contact. Connect with your customer in a friendly, relaxed way. Give others your undivided attention. Personalize. Assessing the customer's style. There's a commonly used saying that we should treat customers how we would like to be treated. Wrong. We need to treat customers the way they would like to be treated. We're not all the same. Have you noticed that some people buy on impulse, not really thinking it through? And have you noticed that some other people like to do lots of research, and even if they find the perfect product within their budget, they still want to go away and think about it? What if we were to treat the impulsive buyer the same way as the slow, cautious buyer? What would happen? You can imagine the conversation now. The customer, all excited and desperate to get their hands on their shiny new gadget, is confronted by a salesperson saying, "Well, I guess you'll be wanting to go away and think about it. Here's the sales literature for the one you're interested in, and for all the other models, just in case you find you'd rather have one of them." The customer, meanwhile, is gradually losing the will to live. Instead, why not ask a few key questions? What do you need from your visit today? What's your timescale for making a decision? What's the most important factor in choosing your whatever it is? How much do you already know about the model you're interested in? Tailoring the experience. Look for opportunities to tailor the customer's experience. For some customers, it's not even about the product itself. It might be about the backup service, the resulting relationship and peace of mind that's most important to them. Don't expect the customer to flex to fit your process. Many retailers think it's their customer's job to do the flexing, but actually we are the ones who need to adjust our process and style to make it a great experience for them. After all, customers are responsible for paying our wages. So if it's an emotional buyer, be excited and enthusiastic. Don't give them all the technical details. If it's a rational buyer, focus on the practical, sensible attributes of what it is you offer. And match their pace. Slow down if the customer is cautious, speed up if the customer is decisive. You may find this a little challenging at first, or you may not. Either way, you'll find it gets easier and easier the more you do it, to the point where you're not even thinking about it. Eventually, it becomes effortless and natural. Let's be easy to do business with. Using the customer's name. It's a small, simple, yet incredibly powerful technique, and it's a big deal to most people. Using their name says, "You are important to me." Try it and you'll be astounded by the results. How many times do other service providers use your name in a typical day? It's memorable when it happens. Take care not to overuse it though, as it can become annoying and seem insincere. Action tips. Assess the customer's style and adapt to it. Be flexible with your sales process. And personalize by occasionally addressing the customer by name. Questions. Questions are very powerful. They give us information about the customer and their needs. Plus, they help demonstrate professionalism and interest in the customer. They are an investment in the relationship, mostly. It depends on the questions we ask. So what kinds of questions are most useful? Neutral, open, curious, and well-structured questions. Neutral questions. These are not loaded with an agenda. A neutral question might be, what was it that made you decide to come and see us today? A loaded question might be, was it the great finance deal that made you contact us? It's obvious where the salesperson wants to take the conversation. They're more interested in selling a finance package than finding out what's important to the customer. Closed questions. A closed question is one that has a very limited answer, like yes or no. Closed questions are very restrictive and require work on the part of the person answering to fully get the information across. In some cases, the customer might answer a different question, the one they wish the salesperson had asked. For example, the salesperson may ask, "Have you come in to check out the wide range of colours available?" And the customer may answer, "No, but I would like you to run through all the optional extras that are listed on the website, please." Open questions. An open question is an invitation to expand and answer fully. For example, what's important to you in your new kitchen? It's a great open question. Curious questions. I'm curious. How many people do you know who are genuinely curious? As a customer, I find that some salespeople ignore me or push an agenda or simply recite their spiel. It's really refreshing to interact with a salesperson who makes an effort to find out more about me, to discover what advice they can offer, and locate the best product or service to meet my needs. Whenever I encounter a service like that, I go back again and again, and I recommend them at every opportunity. Well-structured questions. The sequence of the questions makes a big difference. For example, we can ask a question about one topic, thinking that's all there is to know, ask a question about another topic before moving on to a third. How about we stay with the first topic and fully explore that before moving on? Being on the receiving end of someone who does this with skill feels simply wonderful. It feels almost therapeutic. Let me give you an example. A customer is interested in buying a new motorcycle. They're interested in comfort, reliability, and they want a good-sized fuel tank. A poor sequence of really quite good questions could be: salesperson, what's important to you in your next bike? Customer, comfort. Salesperson, great, yes, that's important. What else? Now making an assumption that they understand what the customer means by comfort. Customer, big fuel tank. Salesperson, big fuel tank, yes. What else? Customer, reliability. Salesperson, of course, yeah, we don't want to break down, do we? You get the idea. The conversation is disjointed, moving quickly from topic to topic. Each topic is not fully explored. The information is taken at face value, and the salesperson is applying their own interpretation. Here's a better version. Salesperson, what's important to you in your next bike? Customer, comfort. Salesperson, okay. So when you say comfort, would you mind telling me a little more about what you mean by that? Customer, sure. The riding position needs to be comfortable, and also I want good protection from the elements. Salesperson, thanks for that. Comfortable riding position and good protection from the elements. Tell me, why are those aspects of comfort particularly important to you? Customer, well, you see, I cover quite long distances on some trips. I can be on the bike for quite a few hours in a day. I need a comfortable riding position, and also, because I ride all year round, I need good weather protection. Salesperson, wow, that's proper motorcycling. Respect. Customer, thanks. Salesperson, what else is important to you? And then the salesperson spends some time on each topic before moving on to the next. In this second example, the salesperson is finding out much more about the customer and how they use the bike. Not only that, the questions have much more conversational flow to them. The customer is likely to feel that the salesperson is taking more interest and being much more thorough. Action tips, questions. Ask great questions. It reveals so much and enables us to guide the conversation. Use predominantly curious, open, and neutral questions. And be aware of the sequence of your questions. Fully explore one topic before moving on to the next. Be proactive. Great customer service involves being highly responsive to our customers' needs, and being proactive is one way to implement that. What do we mean by being proactive? It means creating change by taking action, fulfilling our customers' desires by taking the initiative. Being proactive means that we drive the situation. For instance, we could say, "Would you like?" "You look like you might." "I noticed that." "Can I?" And so on. The opposite, being reactive, means that we only act in response to a situation, in which case nothing happens unless the customer asks. They might ask, "Can I have?" "Do you have?" "Is there any?" "Where can I find?" You get the general idea. By taking the initiative, we can improve all areas of customer service. Let's look at some ways in which we can be more proactive. Noticing what's going on. We need to remember to raise our heads and look around. Is there a customer who looks lost or unsure? Action. We can check to see if they need help. Have we noticed a customer waiting for something? Action. Perhaps we can speed up the process. Is there an untidy display? Action. Go ahead and tidy the display. Is there an item without point of sale material? Action. Add the missing material. Are there items that aren't priced? Action. Go ahead and price them. Now, we all know that it's important to do what you say you will do. When we go beyond that and do more than we say we will do, that's even better. That's being proactive. Doing more can be implemented in small ways. For example, delivering a product a little sooner than quoted, or perhaps for slightly less than the quoted price. Or we can create a much bigger impact, for example, offering to loan a product for a few days rather than the usual 10-minute look in the showroom. I heard an example of a well-known department store delivering a fridge freezer to a customer so that they could live with it for a few days. Needless to say, they bought it. Proactive communication. This is huge and makes a massive difference to customer perception. When we meet a customer, we can be proactive and initiate the conversation ourselves, rather than wait for them to start talking to us. When a customer has a product or service ordered, we can make regular calls or send messages to them to keep them updated, rather than leaving them wondering, and perhaps check if we can be of further service. When a customer asks for advice or information that we don't have to hand, we can offer to find it out and call them back. And then, of course, do what you say you'll do. When it appears that a customer doesn't understand or is confused, we can acknowledge that and explore ways to help. We can also offer tips and advice to help the customer get the most from using their new product or service. One of my favorite proactive communication techniques is signposting. This is when we explain in advance to a customer or client what will happen. An example of this is when we go down to breakfast in a hotel. When we arrive, they explain things like who will be looking after us today, where the self-service area is, what menu options need to be cooked to order, how long this will take, and so on. As a customer, it helps us to relax and to feel comfortable. As a service provider, it enables us to manage the customer's expectations and clear up any assumptions they may have. The really important thing when signposting is to communicate the situational process clearly to the customer in order for an agreement to be reached. For example, imagine that you are a website designer. You would want your customer to know that you've understood their brief and to check that your understanding is correct. More than that, you would want your customer to know the anticipated timescales and how the process works. At what stages will you be getting in touch with them for their approval of the design? How many design options will be offered? How many times are you willing to refine the design? What information and content will you require from them? By when? It's fantastic for ensuring that there are no assumptions that haven't been expressed, allowing us to reach an agreement before moving forward. Let me finish this section with a story about a time when the staff of a hotel were extremely proactive in making me feel welcome and valued as a guest. The hotel was in a lovely location with perfect views of the English countryside. But on entering the hotel, I didn't receive a great first impression. The carpet was a bit worn, and as I looked more closely, there were other signs that the hotel had seen better days. Yet, as I arrived in the bedroom, I noticed that there was a small box on the bed containing 4 handmade Belgian chocolates. That's very nice. Next to the chocolates was an envelope containing a card with a drawing of the hotel on the front. Inside, beautifully written with fountain pen, were the following words: "Dear Mr. Collett, a very warm welcome to Carey's Manor Hotel." And it was signed by the general manager. Some years later, on a return visit, the welcome card read, "Dear Mr. Collett, a very warm welcome back to the Carey's Manor Hotel," acknowledging that I'd stayed there before. How much time do you think it takes a general manager to write a personal welcome card for new guests each day? Maybe 30 minutes? My guess is that it's the most productive 30 minutes of their day. I tell this story everywhere I go. A great example of a team being proactive with their customers. What extra special actions could you take to cherish your customers? Action tips. Proactively look for ways to be of service to customers. Always be looking to create a wow, perhaps by doing some really simple, thoughtful act. Use signposting as a way to manage our customers' expectations and reach clear agreements with them. Take responsibility and share the credit. When things go wrong, or if a customer isn't happy, we need to make it our business to do whatever we can to correct the situation, even if it wasn't us or our department who messed up. If a customer came to you and gave a sincere compliment about their experience, and it wasn't something that you personally did, the likelihood is that you would graciously accept the positive feedback, thank the customer, and pass it on to the person concerned. You wouldn't say, "Oh, I don't work in that department." That would totally throw the compliment back in the customer's face, and you just wouldn't do it. So when it's something less than positive, how about we adopt the same approach? What would that look and sound like? Well, the first thing is to apologize. Now, I'm aware that many people have a point of view about this, concerned that we might be admitting that we messed up, and maybe it wasn't even our fault. So the apology doesn't need to be, "I'm sorry we messed up," or "I'm sorry we got it wrong," unless we clearly did. It can be more of a, "Okay, I'm sorry to hear that," type of apology. Do it sincerely with the right energy, body language, facial expression, and voice tone, and don't be defensive. Follow up the apology with, "Let me see what I can do to help." People want to feel that they've been acknowledged and heard. Be a Corsican. Whether we're in a challenging situation or not, it's great to always be a Corsican. Someone with an attitude of, "Course I can." While we may not always immediately see a solution, we can tell ourselves, "There must be a way to solve this. I just haven't discovered it yet." When we say this in our heads, it sets the unconscious mind to work on discovering a solution. However, when we say to ourselves, "Oh, there's no way to solve this," our mind won't even try, and so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, closing down possibilities rather than starting a mind Google search for possible solutions. By taking responsibility for the problem, we become a positive influence in our team. Even if we work in a really strong team, there's always scope for improvement. We can be a role model for others, and we may well find that the culture of the team shifts. For example, to become a team in which colleagues support each other instead of blaming, and becoming a team that focuses on success rather than focusing on what's lacking. When things go well, be gracious and acknowledge that we didn't do it entirely alone. Even if we work out in the field making our own appointments and negotiating our own deals, the likelihood is that there were others involved, perhaps producing excellent point of sale materials, or even delivering the products or services themselves. Share the love. Colleagues need a hug too. Talking of which, how does your team deal with negativity? How willing are you and your colleagues to deal with issues in order to keep your customer happy and coming back? Action tips: take responsibility and share the credit. Take ownership whenever a problem arises. Be a Corsican. Offering a sincere apology early in the conversation will help to diffuse the customer's frustration. And share successes with colleagues, spreading the love. Understand needs and expectations. If we're going to be excellent at customer service, we need to understand what our customers' needs are and what they expect. Why is this important? Customers contact us for a reason. Sometimes they find it difficult to articulate that reason. Sometimes they want to play a game of "I'm not telling you," because they think we'll use the information against them, i.e. to sell them something they don't want. So when customers get in touch, they have needs, or if you prefer, requirements, and they would like some assistance to have them fulfilled. The thing is, if we don't satisfy their needs, they won't buy from us. We will end up doing the familiar feature dump, reeling off all the different features of a whole list of products in the hope that something will click. Take one. Let's say a customer is going to buy a washing machine. They visit an electrical warehouse. The assistant asks, "Can I help you?" They respond with, "I'm interested in a washing machine." The assistant says, "Great, follow me," and proceeds to begin a run-through of all the machines on offer, explaining all the features, whether they are relevant to the customer or not. Probably reading the point of sale material as if the customer was not able to read that for themselves. By the time they reach the end of the row, the customer is losing the will to live. Take two. Let's say the customer visits another electrical store where they say the same opening words. The assistant says, "Okay, great. We have a big range of machines, and I'm sure we'll find you the right one. What are the most important features that you're looking for in your next washing machine?" And there's the magic. The customer replies, "Well, it must have a 1400 spin speed. It's got to take a 10 kilogram load and cost no more than £500. The assistant is then able to answer, "Okay, based on that, we have 3 machines to show you. Let me run through the pros and cons of each one." Bingo. That's pretty rare in my experience. Now, let's take it to another level. When the assistant has established what the customer needs from their new washing machine, and before showing them the 3 machines that fit the bill, here's another question they could ask. Why are those features in particular important to you? Wow, have you ever been asked that in an electrical store? How might the customer answer? Well, we don't want to use a tumble dryer. We dry our clothes on a rail, so the drier the clothes come out of the machine, the better. Also, we care for an elderly relative, and we have to change the bedding quite frequently, so it's handy if all the bedding can go in one load. And we're working to a budget because we don't want to take out a loan. So there we see the power of why. We get to understand their reasons. We will stand out head and shoulders from all our competitors, and our customers will love us. And on the way home from work, we'll be feeling great, knowing that we've been of service and made a positive difference in the lives of others. One word of caution. Be careful asking why questions. If they're not asked in the right way, it can seem like we're challenging the customer. Why do you want one of those? Why do you need that? The customer might then feel that they have to justify themselves. We just need to ensure that we ask why questions in a curious and gentle way. If necessary, we can change the question into, "What would be the reason for?" which is less direct and may elicit a more open response. Action tips: understanding needs and expectations. Be curious about what the customer needs. What do they want the product or service to do for them? Gently explore the reasons why those requirements are important to them. Use that information to provide a laser-guided explanation of how your product or service perfectly fulfills their needs. And use proactive communication to avoid misunderstandings. First impressions stick. How quickly is a first impression formed? Many people feel that a first impression is formed in just a few seconds. Once that first impression is made, how easily can it be changed? My experience tells me that it's pretty difficult. Why is that? Well, as human beings, we like to be right about things. We don't like to admit that we may have got it wrong, made a mistake, or been too hasty. So when we weigh up someone or something or somewhere and make our judgments, our minds look for evidence to support those judgments. Anything that doesn't fit gets filtered out. It takes an overwhelming amount of evidence to the contrary to make us change our minds. So what's my point? Firstly, it really is true that we don't get a second chance to make a first impression. It's made and that's it. It is what it is. Which means that we need to make a positive first impression to connect with the maximum number of customers. If we don't, customers may not stay around to give us a chance to win them over. Secondly, when we're busy forming our first impression of a customer, we need to stay open to the possibility that our judgments of them could change. In other words, don't take the first impression as truth. It's just a snapshot in time and may not be at all representative of the whole person. What are the contributing factors to a first impression? There's non-verbal communication, dress code, personal presentation, grooming, hygiene, facial expression, and body language. There's tone of voice, accent, energy, enthusiasm, and warmth. And there's language, the words that are actually spoken. Out of these three aspects, it's interesting to reflect on which ones have the most impact and which the least. Non-verbal communication has the most impact when meeting face-to-face. Tone of voice is the most important when we're on the telephone. The words have the least impact in both face-to-face and on the telephone. Surprising? Not really. As human beings, we have an instinctive, intuitive, inner knowing about other people. It reaches back thousands of years to when we needed to assess potential levels of threat, when it was life or death to know if we could trust another person. Yet these instinctive responses are still the most influential factors when we're dealing with others. So how can we improve our own first impression? Well, firstly, we need to gain a sense of the first impression we're currently making. As it's difficult to assess this ourselves, why not try a little test? Next time you meet someone for the first time, and if it feels appropriate, ask some or all of the following questions. What was your first impression of me? What was it about me that gave you that impression? Who do I remind you of and why? What did you first notice about me? What do you think I could do to make a better first impression? I often encourage participants on training courses to ask these questions of each other. It's always delightful to observe them learning how they come across to others. It's often very different from how they thought it would be. And that's great. Now they're in a position to make changes if they want to. Action tips: first impressions stick. Avoid jumping to conclusions about customers. Practice staying neutral and curious. Ask questions to raise your awareness of the first impression that you make. And be aware that it's how you come across that will have the most impact, and not what you say. Make it feel natural. Have you ever been into a shop, hotel, restaurant, or car dealership and felt that the people weren't really being genuine? Perhaps they'd just been on a customer service training course and were reciting a script. How was that for you as a customer? For me, when this happens, I feel disappointed. What would be your ideal? Welcoming, friendly, and easy? I'm guessing that you've had some great experiences as a customer, times when you felt completely at ease and the whole experience just flowed. My local coffee shop is great. I love going there. I've gotten to know the manager, Bam. He's a really cool dude. One of the things he loves about working there is the dress code. There isn't one. He goes to work wearing clothes that express who he really is, as do all his team members. Sure, they all wear the company aprons, but beyond that, it seems like anything goes. It's awesome. Everyone, customers and staff, seem really relaxed. One of the main reasons that Bam loves working there is not the pay, the hours, the pension, or the annual leave. It's just the fact that he can be who he is. And you know, when that's the deal for the staff, it's an invitation for the customers too. I feel that I can be who I am, which is another thing I love about going there. It feels great. Let the customer meet the real you. Even if the coffee shop vibe isn't the deal where you work, find ways to let your true identity show. Customers are after connection. Being yourself is an invitation for the customer to be who they are. If you're relaxed, the customer will be too. Okay, maybe we're in a situation where we are required to say certain things, ask certain questions, or wear certain clothes. Maybe it's company policy or a legal requirement. Fair enough. Follow protocol, but go ahead and put some fun and personality around it. Make it your own. Use a tone of voice that says we really own what we're saying and doing. Include an extra bit of conversation. I've seen this done so well in many situations. When a person has a spark about them, it completely changes the interaction. We absolutely don't need to sound bored. I mentioned the Pike Place fish video earlier, and it's a great source of ideas for how to go about this. One technique they have perfected is when a member of their team calls out an order, the whole team chants it right back at them. That's just one creative suggestion for transforming a repetitive daily routine into something that customers can tell their families about. The employees aren't reciting a script, they are being themselves and they're having fun. Much more on this in part 3, but in the meantime, ask yourself, how could I be myself and have more fun at work? Action tips make it feel natural. Find creative ways to have fun at work. Let your personality shine through your words and actions. And get your team involved. Spread the magic. Do more than expected. Most of us like to feel that we've come out on top in some way. Personally, I love a bargain, and there doesn't need to be a massive saving to make me feel good, although the bigger the better. Even a small saving or a freebie does the trick. I recently had a meal in a Thai restaurant with a friend, and we both ordered a glass of the same wine. The waiter returned, and after he'd poured the wine, he noticed that there was a small amount of the wine left in the bottle. With no hesitation, he said, "Here you go, I'll leave you what's left in the bottle." There wasn't even that much wine left, but it was a nice gesture, a small touch that made us feel valued. Even though we often know the cost of a free item is hidden in the overall price, it feels as if we're getting it for nothing. Many of us love an all-inclusive holiday because for the time that we're away, we're not spending money. It feels as if it's free, even though we prepaid for our food and drinks. Perception is everything. Add value. I always look for ways to do this with my clients. I'll agree on a fee, knowing that I'm going to give them more than they think they're getting. Sometimes it's a gift of a book or another type of added value, such as additional follow-up support. Plus, I'll often send a thank you card to express my appreciation for their business. Psychologically, this works really well. It's an investment in the relationship. It communicates caring and says, this is not just about the money. What about for you? What could you do? Maybe a small free gift, some small thoughtful touch. The more relevant to the customer we can make it, the better. Maybe we can add value and be of service in other ways. Offer some tips on how to use the product, a money off voucher for next time, or give them access to a VIP members group. It doesn't need to be costly. It just needs a bit of creative thought, planning and time. If you can't give a physical gift, offer an emotional one. Kind words, appreciation, or a hug. Make our customer's day by doing something special. What could you do? And when things go wrong, see it as an opportunity. Research has shown that when a problem arises, if the situation is handled well, customers can become more loyal than they were before. By the way, this is not a suggestion to create problems for your customers. So when things do go wrong, don't just put them right. We could just correct the mistake and leave it at that, believing that we've done what we needed to do. But remember, we also need to repair the damage that's been done to both the relationship and our reputation in the customer's mind. Do something to say sorry. Give a gift of some kind. Leave them feeling that the problem wasn't so bad after all. When I ran a car dealership, if a customer had a problem with their car, we would lend them a courtesy car. Whenever possible, a better model than their own car, perhaps a nice convertible. The customer might say to themselves, this is a very nice car to drive around in. I don't mind how long it takes the dealer to fix my car. Sometimes we would even say to the customer, thank you for your patience. Please take your partner out to dinner and bring us the bill. It works. What could you do in your situation? Action tips: do more than expected. Look for ways to show customers that you appreciate and value them. When you make commitments to customers, build in some going beyond room around price, timescale, service level, etc. See problems as opportunities to wow the customer and leave them feeling better than before. +1. Commit to your own development. It's not about being the best. It's about being better than you were yesterday. In the spirit of do more than expected, here's a bonus section. Do you know any junkies? I'm not talking about people addicted to illegal substances, but I am talking about people who are always reading self-development books and going on courses and retreats. Well, I am one of those people. I've spent several £1,000s, I haven't dared do the maths, on personal development materials. Speaking from experience, it can all become a bit of a fixation, and you know what? I thoroughly recommend it. Surprisingly, life on a development path doesn't always get easier, although it can. What I have found, though, is that it does get a whole lot more exciting in so very many ways. Below are a few suggestions for self-development that will skyrocket your career. It doesn't need to cost you anything because there's loads of great information available for free on the internet, including servicewithahug.com. NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. NLP offers us a number of tools and techniques that help us to communicate more effectively. Remember that the greatest part of what we communicate is non-verbal, and the least important in terms of impact is what we say. NLP helps us to manage our response to any situation that may crop up, allowing us to stay resourceful and achieve the results we desire. For more information, please visit itsnlp.com. Emotional intelligence. EI was brought to prominence by Daniel Goleman in the 1970s. Daniel found that academic ability and IQ are not the predictors of success that we might expect them to be. We've all come across stories of people who were really intellectual but haven't been successful. And similarly, we've heard about those who had little or no educational qualifications but are very successful at creating the lifestyle they want. And good examples of this are Richard Branson and Sir Alan Sugar. So what does it boil down to? The ability to manage ourselves and create effective relationships with others, particularly our ability to influence, persuade, and inspire people. Self-awareness. How self-aware are you? What is self-awareness anyway? Personally, I would define self-awareness as an understanding of how we operate in the world, our beliefs, our values, our behavior, and so on. In addition to that, it's appreciating our impact on others and how they perceive us. This is very useful information. At the same time, it's something you may not have given this much thought to. Let's consider the following. Looking at your early life story, which people, events, and experiences have had the greatest impact on shaping the person you've become? How do others perceive you? How well do you know yourself? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How do you prefer to do things? There are many different ways to be a human being. None of them are wrong, but that's not the point. Other people will always have thoughts about the way we do things and may make us wrong in their minds. Raising our awareness of the impact we have on others means that we can change our behavior to accommodate different circumstances, particularly in customer service situations where the goal is to achieve a happy customer. I would encourage you to seek honest feedback from others, customers, colleagues, friends, family members, and so on. One note of caution: make it easy for people to speak honestly. You don't want them saying what they think you want to hear. Invite constructive suggestions and thank them sincerely. Avoid offering them your point of view, as this may seem like you're being defensive and may put people off giving you feedback in the future. How they see it is how they see it. End of. Mindfulness. When's the last time you took time to do nothing? To take time out for yourself. It can be incredibly beneficial, both mentally and physically, to meditate regularly. People who meditate talk about greater calmness and mental focus. I wonder what it could be for you. Action tips. Consider some ways in which you could develop your skills. Do a bit of research and then make a commitment to one thing: a book, a course, a webinar. Just take the next step and see where it leads. Ask others how they see you. Your regular customers, trusted colleagues, friends, relatives. Use their feedback as a valuable resource for your future development. Learn to meditate and commit to a daily mindfulness practice, even if it's just 10 minutes in the morning before you start your day. Part 2. Understand emotionally. Always render more and better service than is expected of you, no matter what your task may be. Ogmandino. Welcome to the second part of our book. In part 1, we explored ways to H, handle our customers skillfully. In theory, if you did only that and nothing else, you'd be way ahead of the game based on my experiences of being a customer. I've also worked in customer service roles for my entire working life, including training customer-facing staff for over 2 decades. One thing I've noticed is the high degree of attention that gets paid to what to say and do, rather than how to be with customers. Here in part 2, we will explore ways to understand our customers emotionally, which will also require an understanding of our own emotional states, and about the difference that you can make. It is perhaps the most important area of all 3 aspects of HUG. So why is understanding our customer's emotional state so important, or even relevant? Because most customers don't decide who to buy from based on logic. There's a good deal of emotion in there. Most of us buy from people we like and trust, a level of connection we need to encourage with all our customers. But to do that, we need to understand the impact we are making on our customers and an understanding of how to lead customers into a more positive frame of mind by being of service to them. I'd also like to recommend further reading on the subject, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. It's a lovely small book and so very easy to read. So let's get going. Recognizing the signs. Think about a time when, as a customer yourself, you experienced the service provider being distracted, perhaps even having a conversation with a colleague, or simply just being disengaged. You probably felt something, perhaps irritated, frustrated, or annoyed, feelings that will have been obvious to anyone else observing the situation. But the service provider, off in their own world, was probably unaware of those signals from you. When have we been like that with our customers? Each customer is constantly giving us lots of information about how they're feeling, even if they're not interacting verbally with us. If you are physically with the customer, watch their body language closely for signs. They may be feeling a little anxious or nervous, a feeling that can be brought on by being out of their comfort zone or the fear of making a wrong decision. Alternatively, they may be feeling very excited because today is the day they're going to get their long-wished-for product and they can't wait. What differences would you notice in the body language of the two customers in the examples above? The likelihood is that you don't need me to tell you. Intuitively, you know already. It is instinctive. As mentioned in part 1, it's that primitive part of us that was hardwired to assess the situation. We all know how to do this, even if we might be a bit rusty. What else could we pick up on? How about tone of voice? This is particularly important when we're dealing with customers on the telephone and we don't have body language to offer further information. When we pay attention, really pay attention, something magical happens. Listening for the emotion behind the words, watching the body language for small clues and connecting with what they might be feeling helps us to see the world through their eyes. When we put ourselves in the customer's shoes, we're able to align with their needs and respond accordingly. So I'd like to recommend another book for further examples of what's possible. Time to Think by Nancy Kline invites us to develop the art of paying full attention to what the other person is saying, and not just in words. In her book, Nancy presents a step-by-step guide that can be used in any situation. Whether we want to have more productive meetings, solve business problems, or build stronger relationships, this book offers us a new world of possibilities. With so many distractions these days, it's quite unusual for people to give their full attention to each other. It's almost become socially acceptable to have mobiles flashing updates from social media sites whilst we're in the middle of a conversation. Pay attention. Give someone the gift of our attention. It's one of the most powerful ways of wowing our customer, simply because it's pretty unusual. Action tips. Be very aware of your customer's body language and voice tone. Avoid distractions and give the customer the gift of your full attention, and trust your knowing, your gut. Matching. What is your understanding of the word rapport? In a previous section, we described it as personal connection with warmth. The Oxford English Dictionary offers a close and harmonious relationship in which the people or groups concerned understand each other's feelings or ideas and communicate well. My take on rapport is that it's a feeling. When we have rapport, it feels comfortable, easy, and there's warmth on both sides. We can relax and be ourselves. Without rapport, an exchange is transactional and cold, and we might feel a bit on edge. Another way to describe it might be connected versus disconnected. In a customer service context, we don't really want close relationships. Imagine how busy we would be on social media. But we do want rapport. An exception might involve selling something of very high value with an extended sales process and where we have relatively few customers. Why might rapport be important? Hopefully it's obvious. Customers enjoy that feeling of ease of being connected. This links massively to trust. When there's rapport, there's generally trust. Without rapport, there's usually less trust, which prompts a guarded, arm's-length way of doing business. Rapport is a huge driving force in keeping customers coming back. How many of your customers just randomly contact you or drop by, not because they need to purchase anything, but because they just feel like keeping in touch? Those are the customers with whom you have great rapport, and the chances are they love doing business with you. One of the easiest ways to build rapport is just to be curious about the other person. Show a keen interest in their favorite subject, which is themselves. Dale Carnegie wrote the book How to Win Friends and Influence People in 1936, and it continues to be a life-changing book for those who read it. When I read the book, I discovered that people are 100 times more interested in themselves than they are in you. It's so clear. Encourage people to talk about themselves and they'll love you. Now we come to matching, the title of this section. What's the link between rapport and matching? Well, at the heart of rapport is similarity. We feel a sense of ease with people with whom we have a shared way of experiencing the world and something in common. You like fishing, they like fishing. Hurrah, let's talk about maggots. Just kidding. But you get the point. It really is that easy. But here's the key question. Can we build rapport with someone with whom we have no shared interest? What do you think? Have a look back at what you wrote down in response to those questions in the section called Connect. I'm guessing that a great many of the connections you have are based around a shared interest. Football, fishing, yoga, drama, or music. You feel on the same wavelength as the other person, and therefore it's easy to connect. This won't always be the case with your customers. So how do you create a feeling of we're on the same wavelength with someone who may not have the same interests as you? Well, the clue is in the title of the section. We match them. We do our own version of them, not in a mimicking way, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that says, I'd really like to create some warmth and connection in this interaction. So what can be matched? The most powerful rapport builders are those aspects that the other person isn't even aware of. Let's look at a few now. Body language. As a service provider, when we notice aspects of the customer's body language, it puts us in the driving seat in terms of how connected we feel to that person. If they have a particular way of sitting or standing, and we all do, we can adopt a similar posture. If they like to use particular gestures, we can use them too. You might think that this is really obvious and the other person will notice it straight away. In my experience, that's not the case, but they definitely will feel the effect. They will begin to relax and feel more comfortable, and yet they won't really know why, but you will. Voice. Pay attention to how the other person speaks. Do they speak quickly or slowly? Do they pause or not? Do they use a lot of energy in their voice or not so much? However they like to speak, you can do your version of it, subtly, without overtly imitating them. Is this sounding like fun yet? Words. Most people have favourite words, words that crop up again and again in their speech. Listen for those words and use them. Here's an example in which the service provider is matching the customer's words. Customer: Hi, I'm looking for a new TV. 4K with amazing styling and a wall bracket so that I can watch it from wherever I am in the room. I've looked all over town, but I can't see one that I like the look of. You got anything here? Service provider: Hi, well, thanks for coming in to see us today. Seems to me you've got a really clear vision of what you want. I get the picture and I'll be happy to show you our range. Let me first check that I've got clarity. It appears to me that you want a 4K TV with amazing styling and a wall bracket so that you can watch from wherever you are in the room. Customer: Bullseye. Service provider: Great, that's clear. Before I show you, are there any other features you're looking for? We don't want to miss anything. Now, what do you notice about what the service provider is saying in this interaction? What do you notice about their communication style and their choice of words? In this example, the customer is likely to feel that they found someone just like them. They may not think it consciously, and that's the beauty of using this technique. It's very subtle and incredibly powerful, but mastering it needs practice. So what was the service provider doing? They were using the customer's exact words back to them and adding their own words in a similar style. If you really study the language, you'll see that most of the customer's words are visual. Looking for, styling, looked all over town, can't see the one I like the look of. And notice that the service provider matches that communication style. Coming in to see us, I get the picture, show you, I've got clarity, it appears to me, that's clear, before I show you. Anything else you're looking for? My experience of using a technique like this is that the customer feels magnetically drawn to us, as if by magic. They feel as if we get them, which of course we do. Not every customer will prefer visual language. Some will tend to use sound-based, also known as auditory, words like, I hear you, that rings a bell, sounds good, give me a shout, on my wavelength, living in harmony, music to my ears, etc. Whereas some will prefer feelings-based, also known as kinesthetic words, like get a grip, keep in touch, feels right, roughly the same, things went smoothly, etc. Now imagine using auditory or kinesthetic language with our example above, when the customer was using visual words. They would more than likely have walked out thinking that the service provider didn't understand what they were looking for. There's one other thing to point out in the example above. The service provider matched the customer's level of formality. Notice the greeting. The customer leads with hi, so the service provider mirrors that. Imagine how the customer would have felt if the response had come back formally with, Good morning, sir. The service provider would have immediately put distance between themselves and the customer. While we always need to keep in mind that we're representing a business or organization, so therefore we need to remain professional, it is possible to flex within a range. I encourage you to play with this and notice the results you get. Have fun with it. You may be better at it than you think. Action tips. Adopt your own version of the customer's body language. Match the tempo, tonality, and energy of the customer's voice. And pay attention to the customer's language, visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, and adopt similar language yourself. Empathize. What is empathy? Some would say it's acknowledging the feelings of the other person. Many customer service books and training courses will emphasize the need for empathy when things go wrong and the customer is upset. And that's true. Empathy is a vital ingredient in these situations. However, I would suggest going further. How about using it all the time? So why empathize with people? What does it create? First and foremost, it creates more ease between us and them. Building on the section about matching, empathy adds to our sense of understanding, similarity, and connection. When someone empathizes with us, we feel understood and also feel that our emotions have been acknowledged. And as with rapport, there is a link between empathy and trust. The two seem to go hand in hand. And it's clear to see why this would be a good thing. Customers who trust us buy from us. And if they trust our advice, they will come back again and again. Our advice is one of the ways we can add value. What about the customer? What does more trust do for them? Some say that it's one of the most important elements for the customer. When customers feel genuine empathy and begin to trust, it puts the customer's mind at ease. Everyone, not just our customer, loves that feeling. So how do we express empathy? There are many ways to do this. Firstly, eye contact. One of the primary ways of making a connection with someone is through the eyes. We often show our emotions through our eyes, anger or sadness, for example, so it's important that we maintain soft, caring eye contact. And see a later section for more on eye contact. Also, active listening. What do we mean by active listening? What's the difference between listening and active listening? The active part is the feedback which lets others know we are listening. Feedback involves eye contact, as well as nodding in acknowledgement and a verbal response. Be sure to allow enough space for the other person to finish speaking. Avoid jumping in straight away, or even worse, talking over the customer. And then there's body language. Remain open, relaxed, and supple, as signs of tension can be picked up by the other person outside of their conscious awareness, which in turn affects their level of ease. Avoid gestures or postures that could be interpreted by the customer as closed or defensive. Try gently leaning into the customer whilst respecting their personal space. Another important element of body language is our facial expression. Maintain a warm, neutral facial expression with a genuine smile. Words. Phrases such as "I understand" and "I appreciate" will build a sense of empathy and emotional connection. As will asking questions such as "How do you feel about that?" which shows that we're interested in the customer's feelings. Action tips. Remember to sense how the customer might be feeling and to acknowledge that if appropriate. Trust your knowing. Adjust your body language in order for the customer to feel more comfortable. Use supportive, encouraging words and phrases. Have fun. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou. As a customer, I often wonder how much fun the person I'm dealing with is having. Sometimes I'm not wondering for long. It becomes obvious really quickly, and not always in a good way. A customer usually has a great experience when dealing with a service provider who has a great attitude or mindset. Some people go the extra mile for their customers, making their customers' day through a bright and cheerful approach. Whereas some people show up, do their job, and go home. The former says, "I'm here for you. How can I serve you? How can I add some value and cheer you up?" The latter could be interpreted as, "I don't care." It's essential that we make the customer experience memorable and fun if we would like customers to come back. How much fun do you have at work? And what would happen if you started having more fun? Even just a tiny 1%. My bet is that at least two things would happen. Firstly, your customers would be uplifted by their interaction with you, and secondly, you would enjoy your day more. To me, this is a no-brainer. What stops us having fun at work? Sometimes the answer is nothing. So what are we waiting for? It won't happen by itself. We need to create it. I would encourage you to regularly have fun at work. Build it into your day. Make it part of the team culture where you work. You'll find that it's contagious. It will spread like wildfire, and the energy level will rise accordingly. But you don't know what it's like where I work. It's impossible to have fun, I hear you say. And it could be true that your employer expects you to deal with the customers in a particular way, and you must keep your behavior appropriate for the brand or industry you represent. At the same time, you can find opportunities to keep things light and help the day go along nicely. I once met someone who worked for an undertaker. He explained that while dealing with grieving relatives, it is, of course, completely inappropriate to be jolly, laughing and making jokes. Yet, behind the scenes, it was quite normal for them to have a bit of fun while carrying out their unusual work. Creating a fun atmosphere at work, without going over the top, will lift the atmosphere and make everyone feel better. As I said before, always make sure that if there are customers around, you include them so that they don't think you're having a laugh at their expense. So go ahead, make someone's day, and your own. Action tips. Actively look for opportunities to keep your working environment light and playful, whilst remaining appropriate to the industry you work in. Make your customer's day by creating a relaxed, memorable and fun experience each time, and put up a visual reminder of Maya Angelou's quote. Tone of voice. It's not what you say, but how you say it. The real meaning of what's being said is carried by the tone of voice. When I was managing a sales team, one of my salespeople was able to say the most outrageous things to his customers. Yet they loved it, and they loved him. He loved his work, he loved making his customers laugh, and that's what came through in his tone of voice. He was being totally authentic, being his own amusing self, and not just following a sales script. That's what customers want, authentic connection in every area of their life, even in momentary everyday interactions. Have a listen to this simple sentence where I emphasize a different word each time and see how the meaning changes. I didn't say she stole your purse. 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 The same sentence communicating 7 very different messages. Equally, have a nice day can easily come across as, I really don't want to be here doing this lousy stinking job, if that's what we're thinking and feeling. Customers not only sense that it's fake, but they get the real meaning by our tone of voice. So the big question is, how do we actually set the tone for our interactions? You recall from our section on first impressions how essential it is to make a positive first impression. We need to set the tone for our interaction with the customer, something playful, caring, upbeat, and confident. Once we've made our first impression, it takes an overwhelming amount of effort to make the customer admit to themselves that they were wrong about us at first. We decide something about someone, and then all we want to do is be right. And that's human nature. We unconsciously look for facts and evidence to support our point of view and we dismiss anything that doesn't fit. So let's look at how we might play around with different voice tones. Try saying the same thing whilst applying a selection of tones. Find someone who can play this game with you and get them to describe what they hear in your voice. Try saying something like, "The cafe is located on the 3rd floor," as if you are irritated, interested, bored, caring, stern, patronizing, angry, or something else. Think about the impact we make when speaking on the telephone. 82% of that impact will be from our tone of voice, with only 18% from the actual words spoken. Plus, there's an added dimension to telephone communication. The telephone has a tendency to make the voice sound a little bit flat. So it's a good idea to raise our energy level to beyond how it would be if we were speaking to somebody face to face. If we don't do this, we can sound as if we've had an enthusiasm bypass. I recently called an upmarket department store in London for the first time. The recorded welcome message was dull and flat. It totally lacked energy, excitement, or passion, and that created for me a really poor first impression. Another factor to take into account is that we cannot be sure what's going on at the other end, what activity the other person might be involved in. We can't see them and they can't see us. So this applies to the customer too. Let them know what you're doing. For example, "I'm just calling that information up on my screen right now, Mr. Customer. It's just taking a moment." And then if there's a pause, you could ask, "How's your day going so far?" Another thing we can do is convey a positive emotion by smiling. Yes, it really is possible to hear a smile at the other end of the telephone. Try it out for yourself. Generally, we're quite unaware of how we sound to others on the telephone, and we can learn a great deal about our impact by recording calls and listening to them ourselves. Also, ask a few other people whom you trust to comment on how you sound and for them to make suggestions. They may come up with things like, slow down a bit, create more of a connection with the customer, inject more energy and passion, allow more time for the customer to finish speaking, breathe and speak more from the belly than from the throat. By the way, this results in the voice resonating at a lower frequency and therefore conveying more credibility and authority. In summary, our tone of voice reveals a great deal about how we are experiencing our world, which in turn has an impact on our customers. If we are in a negative state, we can change how we feel by having some friendly banter with a colleague, taking a break and getting some fresh air, taking deep, relaxing breaths, listening to some uplifting music, or playing a game. I used to play an entertaining game with colleagues where we would give each other a random word, for example, walrus, degenerate, hopscotch, electron, etc. Our challenge was to then use that word that we'd been given in the next 10 customer interactions. Telling the customer about the game was considered cheating. Simple, yet hilarious. But please be careful when playing this game. Always remain professional and respectful. Giving the customer a great experience is always our priority. Action tips. Be sure of your intention when you speak. The true meaning will be conveyed in your voice tone. Inject a bit more energy and sparkle into your voice when using the telephone. Stand up if necessary. And get some feedback about your voice tone and apply any suggestions that turn up consistently. Eye contact. As was mentioned earlier in the book, with great eye contact we come across as more engaged, friendly and confident. Not only that, it provides us with a lot of non-verbal information about how the other person is feeling. What stories do we make up in our minds about people when they aren't giving us much eye contact? They're shy. They aren't telling the truth. They lack confidence. They're feeling anxious. They aren't listening. They aren't interested in us. Any of these could well be true, or none of them. They are just assumptions. You may also be aware that different cultures have different conventions regarding eye contact. We can't control how much eye contact the customer is making with us. However, we can control our own eye contact and therefore avoid the customer making up their story about what's going on for us. Eye contact is massive in terms of the impact it has on others. It's sometimes said that the eyes are the window to the soul. Wow, what a thought. Imagine if we could connect with our customer's soul, assuming they have one. When someone looks into our eyes, at least there is something going on, some level of connection. Of course, there are different qualities of eye contact. Too much intensity can feel uncomfortable. It can feel really challenging or even threatening. The ideal is soft, gentle eye contact, with our eyes meeting about 65 to 70% of the time, breaking eye contact every 3 to 6 seconds. And rather than looking down, which may indicate lack of interest, look up or to the sides as if you're thinking about what they're saying. And rather than that manic stare into the eyes, imagine an inverted triangle with a line across and down to the tip of the nose. Placing our gaze into this eyes-nose triangle gives the other person the feeling of eye contact without the intensity of the manic stare. Try it. It's easy and it works. So why should we care about this? Well, according to a British Psychological Society article from November 2016, we are more likely to remember faces with which we've experienced mutual gaze. From a customer's perspective, how great to be remembered from a previous visit. And from a service provider's perspective, how great to have the customer remember us from last time. Not only that, we're also much more likely to trust each other and feel that we somehow care about each other. So how about setting an intention to improve eye contact? Here are a few suggestions to get started. Shorter conversations are easier than longer ones for maintaining eye contact, so start with quick, easy interactions and work up from there. It's much easier to maintain eye contact when we are listening to someone than when we're speaking. So improve your listening eye contact first and then move on to improving your speaking eye contact. Improve your eye contact with people you are comfortable with, friends, relatives, etc. first. And when your confidence grows, develop stronger eye contact with people you find a little bit intimidating, a boss, professional people, etc. Be kind to yourself and allow a bit more time for this new habit to feel natural. Action tips. Use eye contact as one way to connect with others and build trust. Use the eyes-nose triangle as a way to make eye contact more comfortable. And start with easier conversations. Then stretch yourself further. Relax. It's all very well talking about getting our customers to feel like they've been hugged by us, but what if we're the ones who need the hug? What if we're feeling stressed and not in a good place emotionally, with nothing left to give? Our customers will certainly pick up on how we're feeling, so we need to know how to care for ourselves emotionally. If we don't, we may experience physical, mental, or emotional ill health. Most people go through times of feeling stressed at some point in their life. In fact, according to UK government statistics, 11.7 million working days were lost due to stress-related conditions in 2015-16, which was around 45% of all days lost to sickness. That's a lot. Working in any role that involves dealing with customers has the potential to be stressful. What if the stress is not the external event? What if it's our response to the event that creates a feeling of being stressed? I've noticed that two people can have totally different responses to the same event. For example, let's imagine you've been asked to give a talk about your role to 30 senior managers where you work. One person's response might be, "Great, I can't wait to do that. This is my opportunity to get noticed. I'm so excited." Another person's response could be, "I'm terrified. I know I'll forget what to say and I'll look like an idiot. I'd rather do something else, anything else. My hands are going clammy now just thinking about it." Managing our stress can be made easier just by realizing that it's not about the external event. It's the story we make up in our heads that's causing the anxiety. It's an opportunity to get noticed is one story, and "I know I'll forget what to say and look like an idiot" is another. One of these might be true or not. Whether we think we can or whether we think we can't, either way, we're right. A quote from Henry Ford. I love this quote. "Remember, our patterns of thought and unhelpful inner dialogues are the cause of our anxiety, not the event itself." So it's the story we tell ourselves that creates the experience. Therefore, when we gently question the story can begin to change. Byron Katie uses the question, "Is that true?" in her approach called The Work. For more information, visit www.thework.com. We all maintain our well-being in different ways. The important thing is to know what works for us, and then set aside the time to bring ourselves back into balance, ideally for a few minutes every day. For some people, exercise is a really effective way to release any tension in the body, and therefore in the mind. For others, something that involves relaxing the mind is preferable. Meditation, mindfulness, listening to music with eyes closed, or reading a book. Perhaps you like to feel nurtured, so a deep, hot, foamy bath is emotionally restorative, as are saunas, massage, or other treatments for the body. And it's possible to combine both physical and mental aspects with practices like yoga, tai chi, qigong, and other martial arts. Slow, deep breathing is an amazing gateway into feeling more calm. Next time you feel some form of anxiety, stop and take a few breaths right into your belly and notice the difference it makes. If you are feeling stressed, talk to someone about it. Don't pretend. The people around us can usually tell. There's no way to create an amazing experience for the customer if we're running on empty. In summary, as they say in the aircraft safety briefing, put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others. Take care of yourself first, then you'll be in a position to take care of your customers. Action tips. Choose a way of relaxing that works for you, and make this a priority in your life. When feelings of stress come up, remind yourself that it's the meaning we give the situation that causes the stressful reaction. And take care of yourself first. The people in your life will thank you for that. Heal a relationship. A traveller came upon an old farmer working in his field beside the road. Eager to rest his feet, the wanderer hailed the countryman, who seemed happy enough to straighten his back and pass the time of day. "What sort of people live in the next town?" asked the stranger. "What were the people like where you've come from?" replied the farmer, answering the question with another question. "Oh, they were a bad lot. Troublemakers all, and lazy too. The most selfish people in the world, and not one of them to be trusted. I'm happy to be leaving the scoundrels." "Is that so?" replied the old farmer. "Well, I'm afraid to say you'll find the same sort in the next town." Disappointed, the traveller trudged on his way, and the farmer returned to his work. Sometime later, another stranger, coming from the same direction, hailed the farmer, and they stopped to talk. "What sort of people live in the next town?" he asked. "What were the people like where you've come from?" replied the farmer once again. "They were the best people in the world, hard-working, honest, and friendly. I'm sorry to be leaving them." "Fear not," said the farmer. "You'll find the same sort in the next town." Do you have repeat customers? If so, you're probably delighted to see some of them, while with others, maybe you can't wait for the conversation to end. Have you ever wondered why that is? It's easy for us to make the customer responsible for the way the relationship works. For example, we may say, "Oh, she's so lovely, really easy to deal with," or "He's a nightmare, nothing is ever good enough for him," and so on. Yet, making the other person responsible means we're giving away our power, and it can sometimes feel like we don't have a choice. The truth is we do. It takes two people to have a relationship, and both will contribute positively or negatively to it. It's a dance. One person says or does something, and the other responds. Sometimes one person is leading, and sometimes it's the other person's turn. Things are either getting better or worse. Factors that affect how things are between us and the customer can include the first impression we made and how we set the tone for the conversation, the level of rapport between us and the customer, previous interactions we may have had with the person, in other words, the relationship's history, previous interactions the customer has had with someone else from our business, good, bad, or mediocre, our company's reputation. This is outside our direct control, but by applying the principles in this book, we can positively influence it. The things going on in our life outside of the interaction, for example, health issues, family or relationship challenges, money worries. Things going on in the customer's life outside of the interaction, for example, health issues, family and relationship challenges, and money worries. Okay, so we know that we all have stuff happening in our lives, emotional stuff. This applies to our customers as much as to ourselves. We know that these events can have a big impact on us. The next time you interact with a customer and they are grumpy, lacking in patience, or a bit short with you, I encourage you to forgive them. Who knows what's going on in their life? By the way, I'm not suggesting that you ask them. Just cut them some slack. Apply some empathy. We don't know what the circumstances are, and we don't know how we would be feeling if we were in the same situation. It's too easy to write them off as a miserable customer, but remember, we're never seeing the whole person, just a very narrow slice. If they're complaining about something that's gone wrong with a product or service our company supplied, and their anger or frustration seems disproportionate, we can choose to just accept that that's what's happening and it isn't personal. We can't possibly know how on the edge they might be feeling emotionally. Often, all people want is to be heard. All right, some customers do have a track record of being miserable and difficult to deal with. Sometimes we get into a bit of a pattern with them. We've experienced them before and it wasn't pretty last time. They've experienced us before and they feel the same way. We and the customer have a particular mindset which creates an expectation which creates the experience. Let me explain. Firstly, here's how the fundamental principle works. Number one, our mindset, beliefs and expectations are the basis of, number two, how we behave with someone else, which influences, number three, how they behave towards us. Then what you get is, number four, a resulting interaction, which then reinforces number one. So it's a circular system. So here's an example of how it might work with a difficult customer. Number one, our thought might be, "Oh no, it's that nightmare customer again. I hate dealing with them. Just do what's necessary and get rid of them." which leads to, number 2, we have a closed body language, cold voice tone, we're tense, and it's obvious that we're only just doing the minimum. Which leads to, number 3, the customer feels uncomfortable and grumpy, perhaps feeling resentment for the way we're being with them. Which leads to, number 4, result a tense, stressful situation where each blames the other for making them feel bad, which reinforces our story and takes us back to number 1. By way of contrast, here's an example of the principle in action with an easy customer. Easy in quotes. Thought. Number 1. Yay! It's that charming customer again. I love dealing with them. I wonder how they are today. Which leads to, we have open body language, warm voice tone, we're relaxed, curious, and it's obvious that we're interested and keen to help. Which leads to, the customer becomes more relaxed and feels that we care. They trust us and are willing to forgive us when things go wrong. Which leads to a result which is a successful interaction with a feeling of warmth and ease for both people, which reinforces our story. Here's a question for you. Do you have any customers who were once difficult, who are now easy? When running workshops, I've never received a no to that question. Think about it for a moment. What happened to bring about the change? What did you do to create it? Did the customer suddenly just change? Or did you choose to see the situation and the customer differently? Jot down what you remember. Surely we would like to have a better relationship and be more at ease with our customers. So what are we waiting for? I understand. We're waiting for the customer to be nicer to us. Then, and only then, will we be nice to them. Is that what's going on? And how's that working out? The thing is, when it's warm and fuzzy, it's not only the customer who benefits. We benefit too. We go home feeling more relaxed, having had some lovely conversations all day. That's a lot less stressful. So why not put our ego to one side for a moment and improve it for ourselves? I pointed out earlier in this section that we are the professional in this relationship. It's up to us to make it the best we can. We are there to be of service. That's our job. So, if you're still with me and you're open to making a change, where would be a good place to begin? Go back to our diagrams, our system. What created the results? The interaction of two people. What sets the tone for that? Our mindset. Try this on for size. We meet our difficult, in quotes, customer, and we decide to have the same mindset as we do with our easy, in quotes, customer. With that mindset, we have a different attitude and approach to dealing with that customer. We are more helpful, we are curious, we drop our story about the customer, and we connect. Do you think the customer will notice and feel different? Do you think they'll respond? Maybe they will start to soften. Not straight away, perhaps. Not every customer, maybe. But is it worth trying? If you can't bring yourself to do it for the customer, do it for yourself. You deserve to have the best time at work. After all, you spend enough of your life there. When we are the professional in the relationship, as we are with all of our customers, it's necessary to find a way to be at our best, whatever is happening in the rest of our life. Action tips. Check your mindset before meeting any customer. Expect the best and be patient with them. Who knows what's going on in their life? If a customer seems not okay, use empathy to communicate caring and understanding. And choose a few difficult customers to win over their hearts. You can do it. Mind your language. One of the fundamental principles of customer service is for the customer to feel understood. Without this, it can be very difficult to make much progress, and the customer often leaves the interaction feeling somewhat underwhelmed. Let me share with you one of the biggest mistakes I observe some service providers making. It's very obvious to me that they are looking at the world from their own perspective and not from the customer's. What tells me that? How often they say I, me, or my. How often they talk and don't listen. How much, when they do speak, they talk about their world rather than the customer's. Not letting the customer finish speaking. Not fully acknowledging what the customer has said. Let me give you an example. I was chatting to someone the other day. It wasn't a sales situation, but I felt that there could have been business to be done. I was curious. We were in a car together for about 25 minutes, and we had a pleasant conversation. When we reached our destination and got out of the car, I noticed that I knew quite a lot about the person I'd shared the journey with. I also noticed that he knew nothing about me apart from a few snippets that I'd offered. What had just occurred? I asked many open questions. I listened carefully. I asked additional questions to find out more information. I asked about his feelings. I asked him about what was important to him. He asked me no questions. He seemed to prefer to speak rather than listen. He seemed to enjoy the experience of talking about his world. This is a really key point. It can be so tempting to transmit to the customer everything we know, especially if we're passionate about what we offer. It's a comfort zone for us. We know what we're talking about. We have a customer to talk to, and boy, they're going to hear it. We might say, well, I have to tell the customer about my product or service. Yes, that's true. What I'm encouraging you to do is to convey the information in a way that the customer is convinced that you not only understand their world, but what is important to them and what they are trying to achieve. Another mistake is losing the customer. How do we sometimes do that? Using jargon? Speaking too quickly? Being too technical? Giving too much detail when it's not needed? Not giving enough detail or technical information when it's what the customer really wants and needs to make a purchasing decision. Again, it's about being sensitive to where our customer's at and flexing our approach accordingly. Here's a question to ponder. How positive are you? Very, I hear you say. That's great. What are some of the ways you like to describe situations, events, and people? When people ask you how you are, do you say, not bad? When you receive a request, do you say, no problem? Do you ever say, I must not forget? Or I feel tired? In other words, do you ever place the emphasis on what you don't want? Most people do this some of the time, and it's something to watch out for. There's a famous story in motor racing about a driver who kept telling himself, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall. Guess what? He crashed into the wall. We create more of what we focus on. Say what you do want. Another famous one is don't think of a pink elephant. You can try this now if you like. Don't think of a pink elephant. What are you thinking about? Exactly, a pink elephant. You can't give your mind the instruction not to do something because it makes you focus on it. Saying we're not bad makes us think about bad. Instead, say, I'm great. Saying no problem makes us focus on problems. Instead, say, yes, definitely. Saying I must not forget is an invitation to the brain to forget. Instead, say, I must remember, or better still, I will remember. Saying I feel tired makes us feel more tired. Instead, say, I'm looking forward to having a rest. More about this in part 3, but for now let's focus on forming the habits of appreciating our customer's perspective and using positive, customer-friendly language as much as possible. Action tips. Catch yourself being in your own world. When you notice this happening, switch into customer perspective. Match your language and explanations to the customer, avoiding jargon and slang words. Keep your language focused on what you want to create rather than what you don't want. Feel the energy. Have you ever hugged a customer? I'm talking about an actual physical hug. It's possible that you have on at least one occasion, but not all of your customers, right? How come? How can you tell which customers are open to a hug and which customers are not? Pause to consider your answer for a moment. I'm guessing that what comes to mind would be phrases like, I can just tell, or it just feels right sometimes. What does that mean? How can you tell? Some people would say that it's times like this that we're tapping into our wisdom, our intuition. We are following the energy. A few years ago, I practiced a martial art called Ki Aikido. In the art of Ki Aikido, there is no aggression, tension, or competition. And the word Ki means life force, the natural energy common to all living plants and animals. It's claimed to be a form of energy distinct from that related to pure physical size or muscular strength. Rather, it's something that is around us and within us, and that we can tap into at any time. The existence of Ki is a possible explanation for miracle feats. A child is trapped under a car and the mother is able, incredibly, to lift the car and release her child, something that she would not be capable of doing under normal circumstances. The word Aikido means the way of harmony, focusing initially on how to deal effectively with a physical attack. Rather than meeting physical force with physical force, it's about redirecting and guiding an attack away from ourselves towards the outcome we desire to create. We are trained to use our attacker's energy to achieve what we desire. What I gained from this practice was a deep sense of inner peace and confidence, and I learned the ability to feel and use energy. I can hear you saying, what's all this got to do with customers? Think about how some customers have a very strong push energy. They want to take charge and have their needs met. If you meet force with force, it rarely ends well. For example, deciding to block their energy by saying no, or trying to overpower the customer by becoming aggressive or stubborn. On the other hand, we might just decide to roll over, which may result in us feeling bad about ourselves or the situation, and the customer not respecting us. There is another way, the way of harmony, which uses a combination of life force energy and the other person's energy to achieve an outcome that's good for both. Here are some suggestions for doing this in a customer service situation. Connect with the customer energetically. Now, I know this may sound a bit weird, but it is possible to look beyond the physical person to connect with their non-physical self. My method is to say in my head, I love you. Best not to say it out loud. Customers unconsciously feel that energy and respond by letting their barriers down, which causes a deeper sense of connection. Trust your gut, your inner knowing. I can just tell, or it just feels right sometimes. Trust it. Follow it. Act on it to find your own way of developing a non-physical connection. When a customer is using push energy, remember that we all have everything we need at our disposal to deal with it and that it's not personal. Be 100% confident. The chances are that the customer is frustrated about something. Use their energy to achieve the outcome that's good for both of you. For example, you might avoid confronting their energy, but acknowledging it, aligning yourself with where they're at, and delicately moving the focus of the conversation away from the negative situation onto what they would like to happen. I've noticed that customers who bang the table are often serious buyers. They're not usually there to waste our time. Find a way to help them, and we make a sale. We can do this by removing or explaining any obstacles to a sale. For example, delivery lead times. Most service providers won't know how to deal with this type of customer. The customer will know this. They will have spoken to a few. Maybe that's why they're feeling frustrated. When we show that we're not like most service providers, that we are up to the challenge of dealing with them, the customer will become one of our most loyal advocates. Action tips. Develop the ability to sense the customer's energy, then connect with them on this level beyond their conscious awareness. Look for the way of harmony with every customer. Avoid blocking. And trust your gut feelings, your intuition. This is your wisdom. Go for gold. The brave may not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all. Meg Cabot. So continuing in the spirit of do more than expected, here's another bonus section. What is it that gets you out of bed in the morning? Yes, to a very great extent, the need to earn income is forefront in our minds. But there are zillions of ways to earn income. Why this for you? What is it about your current work that you enjoy? Knowing why you're doing what you do helps you to create more of it. So rate your enjoyment from your current work out of 10, with 1 being virtually none, to 10 being impossible to be any better than it is. And write down your score. So as you went through that small mental exercise, what factors came to mind? I'm guessing that your score probably wasn't a 1, so why not? What are the aspects that bring you job satisfaction? What's fun for you? Write those down. Equally, it's unlikely that you rated it a 10. Why not? What is it you'd like to change about your job? What would make it more fun? Write that down too. And now reflect on this. These are definitely worth a conversation with your boss. Yes, really. You might actually be surprised at what's possible, especially if you use some key Aikido tactics on them. Why would your boss be interested in helping you have more fun and experience greater job satisfaction? Well, some bosses have worked out that in order to give their customers a great experience, they need staff members with smiles on their faces and a spring in their step. Unhappy, demotivated staff members don't usually deliver a great customer experience. Now, of course, not every boss will be turned on to this rocket science idea, but even without your boss on side, there will be things you can do for yourself. For example, you can talk through your lists with a trusted friend or relative. And while you're not expecting them to fix or solve anything for you, having them listen to you without judgment will be incredibly beneficial in that it will give you much more clarity. Job satisfaction isn't just about having fun, although it does make a huge contribution. What else is involved? According to the University of Bradford's School of Management, the most important factors that bring job satisfaction include interesting work, job security, appreciation of work done, good wages, promotion and growth, loyalty, sense of belonging, discipline, working conditions, and support. You can do something about some of these factors, and some maybe not so much. Identify the most important ones for you, either from the list or add your own, and ask yourself these questions. What would it take to have more ... fill in the blank, at work? What else is possible for me? What am I missing here? I asked myself some questions about career and found that freedom, in other words, the ability to control my own destiny, was off the scale important to me, on a par with oxygen. And that led to a decision for me to start my own business over 20 years ago. What is it that floats your boat? I encourage you to go on a journey towards creating more of that. Life passes by quickly, too short to be someone you're not, but not too short to become the person you always dreamed of becoming. Action tips. Identify what is really important to you in your work and make sure you seek plenty of it every day. Involve your boss. Explain the benefits to the business of you being happy in your role. And ask questions of yourself. What would it take? What else is possible? Part 3. Guide with Integrity. So here we are at Part 3 already. How are you feeling about what we've covered so far? This final part is where we look at how we can add real, tangible value for the customer. How to guide the customer with integrity. We're in a great place to do this, having applied our excellent customer handling skills and built a strong emotional connection. Applying these principles will mean that the customer is more likely to trust us and be open to our advice. Guiding with integrity is about helping customers make the best possible purchasing decisions, ones they will thank us for and which will keep them coming back to us in the future. And these aren't just selling skills. What we're actually covering is a selection of ways to help the customer to buy something they would like to have, providing them with valuable information that will help them choose the most suitable product or service for their needs. And I call that being of service. Ask. Develop an interest in life as you see it. The people, things, literature, music. The world is so rich, simply throbbing with rich treasures, beautiful souls, and interesting people. Forget yourself. Henry Miller. In an earlier section, we covered the various kinds of questions we can use in conversations with our customers. It's absolutely essential to use questions to establish the needs of the customer. Without these questions, plus of course listening to the customer's responses, we are in the dark as to what might be important to the customer, leaving us to make assumptions that could easily be totally incorrect. So that's a given. Ask questions. Lots of questions. Not only are they useful in finding out key information, they also have a number of other benefits. Questions demonstrate that we are true professionals. Imagine going to see your doctor, and even before you have finished explaining your symptoms, the doctor begins to write out a prescription. No questions, no examination. That would be considered malpractice. A true professional spends time investigating what is going on before recommending a solution. Asking questions will result in the customer perceiving you as a professional. Questions show that we are genuinely interested in the customer, and it will help to build rapport. This has a positive impact on the relationship. We love it when others take an interest in us. Questions also allow us to guide the direction of the conversation. When you watch or listen to an interview, you'll notice that it's the interviewer who is in control, and that's often because they are following a structure. And also, being in the question means we are curious, open-minded, and avoid being in conclusion, not only about the customer, but in life generally. Ask how they are feeling. It's an emotional decision for most people. Would I rather have this thing, this experience, this service, or would I rather keep the money? Ask the customer how they are feeling about it. Invite them to give you some feedback. Ask them if they have any concerns. If yes, ask with empathy, if those concerns were resolved, would you be happy to go ahead and place an order? Ask for the business. I know that this is a book about customer service. However, one aspect within that is being eager, and that's without being pushy, to win the customer's business. The caveat here is that Before asking for the business, you've laid the foundations by A. Making a positive first impression, B. Building great rapport with the customer, C. Finding out what's important to them, and D. Showing them how your product or service will meet their requirements perfectly. If you haven't fulfilled those actions, you're asking too early, and that will seem pushy. To illustrate this point further, you may have experienced going into an establishment where they clearly aren't bothered if you make a purchase or not. That's not service with a hug. In fact, it's not service at all. Encouraging the customer to say yes is another way of saying, we really want you to join us and become part of our family. Don't be afraid. As long as you've done the groundwork, you can ask. Ask for referrals and testimonials. Have you ever noticed that your best customers tend to send you business through word of mouth? Have you also noticed that those customers are generally a dream to deal with? In my experience, about 20% of customers will give us referrals and recommendations without any prompting. And another 20% of customers are unwilling to recommend no matter how brilliant our service has been. They just won't do it. That leaves around 60% of our customers who are very willing to recommend us, but perhaps wouldn't think of it unless prompted to do so. If we ask them, they will no doubt be delighted. So ask. The alternative to a referral, as described above, is a testimonial. This is an endorsement of the way we looked after them. This can come in the form of a letter or email. Better still if we capture the customer's warm words on video. What is it that stops us from asking? Why do we hold back so often? For many of us, it's fear. Fear of hearing the dreaded two-letter word, no. We tend to second guess what we think the other person will say, and if we don't feel completely confident that it's going to be a yes, then we don't ask. But how can we be sure if we don't ask? Did anyone ever die from receiving a no? No. But those who ask often get a pleasant surprise and get a yes. I encourage you to be one of those people. Take a risk and ask. Action tips. Ask lots of great questions so that you can give high-value guidance to your customer. Ask the customer to place the order when it feels like you've recommended the perfect product or service for their needs. And if the customer is happy, ask for a referral or a testimonial. Add value. Delivering outstanding customer service involves more than just superb customer handling skills and creating positive emotions. Yes, those are really, really important, and often sadly lacking in everyday life. However, service with a hug also has a reassuring consultative quality to it. For instance, the purchase the customer made wasn't the one they anticipated before they had the conversation with you. But as a result of your shedding light on new to them information, they made a better, more informed decision. They might, but not always, end up spending a bit more, and were happy to do so. Customers feel like they totally made the right decision. So how's that done? Here are a few simple everyday examples of adding value for the customer's benefit. In a car dealership parts department, an advisor might say to a customer, when replacing your car's radiator, we recommend that you also replace the hoses, hose clips, and coolant. Would you like me to quote for those items too? The advisor goes on to explain the benefits of replacing those items now and how it could save money and inconvenience in the long term. A supermarket checkout operator might say, I notice you've only got one of these. They're on offer. Buy one and get one free. Would you like another for free? I'll get a colleague to bring you one. A company that supplies a wooden floor might provide tips and advice on care, what to use to clean the floor, how to deal with any scuffs or scratches, perhaps even including free samples of the recommended products. Focus on customer benefits. All too often when I'm working with clients, I hear the service teams explaining features and not benefits. What do we mean by features, and what do we mean by benefits? A feature is some characteristic of the product or service. However, customers don't buy features, they buy benefits. They buy what the product or service will do for them. Explaining the benefits adds huge value for the customer. It helps them to make a more informed choice. When I purchased my mobile phone a few years ago, the salesperson could have said, "This phone has Touch ID, which is a feature." And I would have thought, so what? Fortunately, she explained what Touch ID would do for me. She said, "This feature called Touch ID means that you never have to input your unlock code again. All you need to do is to place your finger or thumb lightly on the button and it will recognize you, immediately unlocking your phone. It's so much faster, easier and more convenient." Did you spot the benefits there? Have a good think about your products and services. Are you talking about features or explaining customer benefits? Generic benefits versus personalized benefits. Most products and services have generic benefits, what it will do for you. The main benefit of a power drill is the ease with which it will give you a hole in something. Taking this to another level though, if we know what's important to the customer, we can link our explanation of the benefits to what the customer is trying to achieve. A personalized benefit, using the example above, would be to explain how a particular power drill is suitable for drilling into the material that the customer wants to make a hole in. Now that's compelling. Provide tailored solutions. Have you ever been to a restaurant when the menu offers all the elements you want, but not all in the same dish? You ask the waiter, "I'd like the salmon please, but can I have it with the lentils and spinach?" The waiter says, "Sorry, that's not possible." You say, "But why not? I don't understand. You clearly have all the ingredients in the kitchen." Waiters reply, "No, it's not possible." It's so frustrating. Where do we do that with our customers? I've noticed that the most successful companies are very good at delivering bespoke offerings to customers with a smile, usually because it's an opportunity to charge the customer more. Back to the restaurant example, which was really a missed opportunity for them. You didn't ask the price of your preferred combination. You just wanted what you wanted, and the restaurant could have charged whatever they felt like for the salmon, lentils, and spinach creation. Good for the customer, because they get what they want, and good for the business, because they can charge a premium price. Look at how budget airlines do this. Faster boarding, extra legroom, extra bags, extra insurance, etc. It all depends on what's most important for the customer, and the customer gets to choose. And that's my point. Another example of adding value. Customers like to be able to choose. So what's possible for you? Create bundles. Almost the opposite of what we've just been talking about is the idea of creating a bundle or a pack that encourages the customer to buy additional items which offer savings. The supermarkets and fast food outlets do it with their meal deals. Garages do it with their service, MOT and valet packages. Customers generally like having as much of something as possible, and everybody generally likes saving money too. This approach ticks both boxes. What could you bundle together for your customers? Adding emotional value. The power of this aspect is not to be understated. You'll know this from part 2. Here's a simple example. As I write this, it's February and I'm in the UK. That means the weather is cold. I live in a rural area and I went out for lunch today to a farm shop cafe. The setting was a converted barn, so it was quite drafty and the heating system was struggling against the sub-zero temperatures outside. The owners of the cafe, were distributing hot water bottles in hand-knitted wool covers to the customers. The feel-good factor of this simple gesture was off the chart. I can honestly say that this was the first time I'd ever had that experience. Lunch was wonderful, and I will definitely go back there again. So it's not the size of the thoughtful gesture. In fact, I believe the smaller the better. It's all about paying attention to the details. Customers expect the big things to be right. It's the small things that separate businesses providing outstanding customer service from the rest. You've heard the phrase, little things mean a lot, and it's so true. A small gesture can add massive emotional value. Where could you add emotional value for your customers? Action tips. With each customer, identify ways to add value beyond what they might be expecting. Make sure that for each product feature, you explain the customer benefit tailored to their situation. And for every customer, add emotional value. Do something that creates a positive emotion for them. Recommend with conviction. There's real power in speaking about a product or service from our own experience. Imagine a customer is shopping around for a vacuum cleaner. They visit one retailer and the assistant says, well, there's this one, and then they talk about it, and there's this one, and they talk about that one, and there's this one, and they talk about the third one. The customer asks, which one do you find the best? The assistant says, I don't really know, I haven't used any of them. The customer then visits a second retailer, and the assistant says, let me show you this one. I've used this model myself, and what I liked about it was, and goes on to explain. Does this have more impact? Of course it does. Which retailer is the customer more likely to buy from? It's obvious. Well-run restaurants normally hold a tasting session for the staff before they open for business, so that the waitresses and waiters are able to speak about every dish on the menu from their own experience. Many years ago, when I worked in sales at a car dealership, the most frequent question was, what car do you drive? So I always made a point of driving the same brand of car that I was selling, which served me well. Some of my colleagues were driving other brands, and when that question came up, I saw the look of confusion on the customers' faces as they wondered if they should be buying the other brand. It's all about demonstrating integrity. I encourage you to experience your products and services. Familiarize yourself with the characteristics, strengths and limitations of each one. Have an opinion based on your findings. Your customers will thank you for your honesty and will come back to you in the future. It's another way of adding value. If it's impossible for you to try every single one of your products and services, then you can use customer feedback and recommendations. Try saying, other customers have found that, and then whatever the feedback was, which is also powerful. To be able to do this, ask your current customers how they're getting on. Ask them what they like and what they don't like about the products they've bought from you. You may find that this also deepens your relationship, as they will appreciate you taking an interest in them. Imagine you go away on holiday. You book through a travel agent. A few days after you get home, the advisor who sold you the holiday rings to ask how you found it. Not a bland was everything okay, but some specific questions about which aspects of the holiday you enjoyed the most, and was there anything that didn't work quite so well for you. If you do this with your customers, not only are you impressing the person you are calling by demonstrating a high level of customer care, but you're also gaining valuable information that you can pass on to other customers. If it's possible, recommend to the customer that they experience your products or service before buying, so that they gain a better sense of what they're buying. Classic examples of this would be small samples of cheese in a supermarket or farm shop, a free or reduced cost weekend in a resort that's selling apartments or timeshare, loaning the customer a car of the type they're thinking of buying, lending samples of curtains, blinds, carpets, wall coverings, etc. for the customer to see how they work together in the actual room. When we experience a product, we're far more likely to say yes, assuming that we enjoyed our taster. How could we give our customers a taster experience of the products or services that we sell. Action tips. Identify ways of personally sampling the products and services we sell. Ask customers for their likes and dislikes in relation to any items they've purchased from you, and find easy ways for your customer to try before they buy. Know your strengths. What is it that you do well? Why do your customers love you? What brings you success in your role? Is it your enthusiasm? Maybe your extensive knowledge about the products you offer? The stories you tell? Is it your ability to connect with the customer so that they always enjoy the experience of dealing with you? Or maybe the way you always, without fail, follow up with customers to make sure they're happy and perhaps offer a further service. So what is it for you? Almost certainly, whatever you answered, these aspects are your USPs, your unique selling points. Customers only get this when they deal with you. What's the value in knowing our strengths? The customer feels confidence in following your advice. It gives us a platform to build upon in assisting more customers, making more impact in the world, and as a result, becoming more successful. Even when we encounter a bad situation with a customer, we can feel proud of what we do every day. We may not get it right every time with every customer, but we don't need to beat ourselves up about it. We can let others in our team know what we can and can't deliver for them. We can make better choices in terms of the things we say yes to and the things we say no to. How do we find out more about our own USPs? We can ask our customers, what do you enjoy most about dealing with me? And make a note of their answers. What do we find effortless? And also, what do we gain the most enjoyment from doing? We can talk through the written list of our own USPs with a trusted friend or family member. And we can talk through the same list with our manager and or colleagues. One final point. There's a tendency for us to take our strengths for granted. They are so much a part of being us that they can become invisible to us. This is why it's important to ask others for their perspective, to fill in those blind spots. We sometimes focus on what we're not so good at. For example, you hear people say, I don't do detail. And this thought sometimes undermines our confidence and how we feel about ourselves. We end up comparing our weaknesses, in quotes, with other people's strengths, also in quotes. That's like a tulip comparing itself with a rose and feeling bad because it's not a rose. Here's my top tip. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Someone I know calls this compare and despair. Be proud of who you are. Tell yourself that you are enough. Write it large on all the mirrors in your home so that you're constantly reminded. Seriously. And how do we know what is a strength and what is a weakness anyway? It's subjective and depends on what is required in each particular situation. What could be viewed by one person as calm under pressure and cool-headed could be seen by someone else as emotionally detached, lacking in passion and fire. The thing to remember is we are all unique in the world, and nobody else can offer exactly the same combination of knowledge, experience, skills, and personality. So go forth and confidently offer yourself in service to the world. Action tips. Make a list of your strengths and remind yourself regularly that this is what your customers get when they deal with you. Be aware of your development areas. Keep working on those. And feel good about yourself and avoid comparing yourself with others. Identify hot buttons. What do we mean by hot buttons? They are what motivate our customer to purchase whatever it is we're offering. These things are sometimes referred to as customer needs or buying motives, and they are constantly changing. They affect everything we buy, from a bar of chocolate to a new home. A few years ago, I went to watch an evening football match, a World Cup qualifying game at Wembley Stadium in London. I went with one of my sons, and we travelled there by train, as well as about 90,000 other people. We had an enjoyable time, and our team won in convincing style. After the game, it took us ages to get to Paddington Station, where we were catching our train home. Except that we didn't. We missed the last train home by less than 5 minutes. What were we to do? Stay in a hotel or find another way of getting home? Even though it was a journey of around 100 miles, we opted for the second option as we both had work commitments the following morning. We noticed that there were still trains running to Reading, which was 40 miles in the right direction. So we set off, not knowing what would happen beyond Reading. Once we arrived, we explored options and saw that there was a train going to Didcot, a small town in Oxfordshire that was another 20 miles in the direction of home. The adventure continued. We arrived in Didcot at about 2 a.m. and took stock of our situation. There were no more trains until 6 a.m. There were no buses. There was no hotel. There was one solitary taxi outside the station. We went to speak to the driver to ask about getting to our hometown. Yes, it was possible to take us home, but the price quoted was very high. Did we try and negotiate on the price? Well, actually, yes, I did, because that's the way I'm hardwired. As you can imagine, it was pointless. The taxi driver had no competition and knew we desperately wanted to get home. Our great big hot button was clearly on show. We paid the money and went home to get some sleep. Customers don't always make it that obvious. However, if we get to know our customer better, understanding what has brought them to the point of even speaking to us, they will often be happy to share their hot button. In fact, sometimes they're bursting to tell us. Usually they just want to deal with someone who will listen and who can suggest a solution. For example, we might be going to a birthday party and need a gift. We may have no idea what to buy as a present. All we want in that moment is to meet a helpful advisor who asks us our budget and shows us a choice of 3 items so we can choose one and wait while the item is gift wrapped, but maybe not how Rowan Atkinson did in the film Love Actually. Once we've identified our customer's hot button or hot buttons, what does that give us? Before I answer that question, let me give you another example. See if you can answer the question yourself, looking at the situation from the perspective of the customer. Let's imagine that you're at a music festival. It's Saturday evening and the headline act is expected to start in about 90 minutes. It's cold, raining and muddy, so it's probably in the UK. It's just getting dark and you didn't pay attention to the weather forecast. Your tent is leaking, which has made your bedding wet, and you are shivering, dressed as you are in your t-shirt, shorts and flip-flops. You're soaked to the skin, cold and feeling miserable. What would you be willing to pay for a hot shower, clean, dry clothes, a thick waterproof jacket, thick woolly socks and Wellington boots, plus a hot meal and a hotel room for later? Probably way beyond what you might normally be willing to pay. So what did you come up with in answer to the question, what does that give us? I would say that when we know the customer's hot buttons, it gives us leverage. What is leverage? According to one definition, it's the ability to influence in a way that multiplies the outcome of our efforts. In this case, influencing the customer. When our customer really wants their needs met, there's not much to do other than show them something that will do the job. The customer is already feeling motivated. That's why they're talking to us. Yet, it's surprising how often service providers miss these obvious signs and seem to do all they can to stand in the way of the customer getting what they want. I feel sure that you'll do much better than that. Action tips. Develop a nose for sensing the customer's hot buttons. Match your offer perfectly to the customer's hot buttons. And remember that the bigger the customer's hot buttons, the more delighted they will be with you for satisfying their desires. Anticipate needs. There is a level beyond responsiveness which involves anticipating customer requests and proactively offering before the customer is asked. Think of this as being super helpful. Imagine the wow that creates for the customer. It's almost like you can read their mind. When we anticipate our customers' needs, we demonstrate that we care about our customers. We reduce complaints. For example, if the customer is feeling frustrated about a situation, when we anticipate their needs, it can diffuse a situation by acknowledging their feelings, reassuring them that we actually do care. We create goodwill. We sell more, highlighting products or services that the customer did not know they needed. And we create customers who are more loyal. So don't wait for the customer to ask. Anticipate. Seize the opportunity and offer. You'll be amazed at the reaction you get, even from the smallest thoughtful gesture. I was shopping in my local town shopping centre and had developed a headache. In a small independent pharmacy, I went up to the counter and asked for paracetamol. As the pharmacist was taking my payment, she asked, "Is this to take now?" When I confirmed that it was, she offered to give me a glass of water so that I could take the tablets there and then. What did that cost her? Nothing but a bit of time and the willingness to put herself in my shoes. What was the impact? It was a big wow for me, and I will always recommend that pharmacy because of that one small thoughtful act. I heard a story of someone in a restaurant who was missing an item of cutlery, a spoon as it happens, and before she could look around for someone to assist her, a waiter arrived with the spoon that she needed. He had anticipated her need. Impressive, unusual, and quite easy if the service provider is paying attention. A friend of mine used the services of a website specialist after her site had been hacked. The technical wizard was able to carry out the security changes, and all was well again. My friend seemed very happy with the cost, and her site was back up in no time. A few weeks passed, and the website specialist got back in touch with my friend and said that there were further updates that could be carried out to keep the site more secure. My friend was very grateful for the proactive approach and was happy to pay another very reasonable invoice. So everyone won. We've just looked at examples of what I call low-cost, high-impact action. What actions could you take in your situation? What merits closer attention? What could you offer that your competitors haven't spotted? Some great examples might include help with children, help with shopping or baggage, offering refreshments, help with parking, very clear signposting, advice, guidance, information, confirming arrangements by email or text, reminder calls or messages, improving waiting times. I've heard many stories over the years of service providers anticipating needs. Often it's the result of paying close attention to what's happening around them. How does the customer seem? A bit stressed? Be curious. What's causing that? What help can we offer? Sometimes we just need to notice the difficulties that previous customers have encountered and have some extra support available. For example, if a customer is setting up a new TV, we could emphasize a particularly tricky or confusing stage in the setup and offer specific advice, offered to be available on our mobile phone to give advice, or even visit the customer's home to assist in person. Consider how and where you could offer support. It creates a massive wow. It helps more people to become and continue being customers, the lifeblood of any business. Action tips. Look for ways to meet unspoken needs that customers might have. Focus on meeting the immediate needs in the moment and prioritize those actions that have a high emotional or personal value. Investigate low-cost, high-impact ways to meet the unspoken needs of your customer. Do your homework. True professionals don't just know about their own products and services. They know about the competition's products and services, and they know the marketplace. If we are to add real value and guide our customers with genuine integrity, we must know what else customers can buy and how we fit into the overall picture. And that's easy to accomplish these days. The good old interweb makes it a breeze. There are comparison websites for most things. There are newsletters we can sign up to. Most trades and sectors have their own associations and institutes. There are LinkedIn groups galore. It really is easy to research what's going on. Beyond that, our competitors can be mystery shopped. If you're not familiar with the term, you may have come across the concept of a secret shopper. Why not pretend to be a customer and experience the competition for yourself? What do other businesses do well that we could copy or improve upon? And even if it's not a great experience, never write them off. It might help us to identify areas where our own service is lacking. Often when the service is poor, the pricing is aggressive. Some rely on low prices to attract customers. The $64,000 question is, will you make a commitment to take action and do the research? Admittedly, it does take time and effort to stay informed. Average can't be bothered. Outstanding gets into it without thinking twice. Average does the minimum. Outstanding knows that in order to be the best, this is part of the game. Please don't misunderstand me on this. I'm not suggesting that we look for all the weaknesses in the competition so that we can slate them to our customers. Professionals and successful people tend to be gracious about their competitors and speak about them with respect. I've noticed that if we knock the competition, customers tend to defend them. Yet when we speak well of the competition, customers tend to point out all their shortcomings. Sweet. Doing our research helps us to know our strong points, and we can highlight these aspects to our customers. Focus on the positive, always. So what other areas are ripe for homework? Maybe I should come up with a more appealing name for it. How about home play? Suggestions on a postcard. How about we do some homework on our customers? Just for fun, what if we took a really keen interest in their world? Let's say that we have this customer and it turns out that they're into canoeing. So we research canoeing, the clubs and the events that are happening, all that sort of thing. Next time, when the customer comes back, we ask them about their canoeing. Well, at this point, the customer's already blown away by the fact that we remembered anything about them. Now, to totally knock it out of the park, we say, are you going to the National Canoeing Championships in Nottingham next month? The look on their face tells us they're thinking, how do you know about that? And they're probably thinking that we must be into canoeing ourselves. No, it's not that. It's just our awesomeness showing through. And how great would that feel? Action tips. Do some research on your competitors, assess their strengths and weaknesses, see where you score and what you can learn from them. Sign up for some newsletters and join some associations in your sector. And get to know more about your customers' hobbies, interests, and their world. WIN. The key to getting ahead is to get started. Coach Henry Gregory. Most of us like to win, but not at any cost. When two people create an agreement where both sides get what they want, we often refer to this as a win-win. We both feel as if we've had a win and therefore feel happy with the outcome. For example, a customer may get the product or service they want and the supplier generates revenue for the business. This is a great situation and something most of us aim for. But what about a win-win-win? This is where we create a win-win transaction, plus we make an investment in the relationship too. Think about relationships as a kind of bank account. When we meet someone for the first time, that's like the opening of the account. The account starts at 0. I certainly don't know of any banks that start the account off by giving us free money. So we need to make deposits to build up a credit balance. In relationships, these deposits take the form of small, thoughtful gestures, starting with being reliable and trustworthy, things like that. Every time the other person feels good about us, what we say or do, the balance goes up a little bit. Most people don't keep score, but everyone will have a feeling about the other person based on what's been said and done between them. When something goes wrong, such as forgetting to call when we said we would, it's no big deal as there's plenty in the account. The balance might go down a little bit and would eventually run out if these things kept happening. Imagine there was no credit balance built up. What would happen if we let the other person down? Our account would become overdrawn, which could lead to a very serious conversation and potentially the end of the relationship. And what about a win-win-win-win? This is a situation where we can create a good outcome for the customer, the business, the relationship, and the planet. Truly sustainable agreements do not deplete the Earth's resources or cause harm to the environment. This may be an aspect that's not in our control, but we can try and do our bit. We can ensure that any packaging or waste is recycled. We can suggest disposal of any discarded products in an environmentally responsible way. We can recommend to the customer the most sustainable solution. For example, if we know that one product will not last beyond a few weeks before it ends up in landfill, while a second option will last a lifetime, we can make the customer aware of the choice they are making and the implications that could result. It's another way of adding value to the customer's decision-making process. So now let's go for a win-win-win-win-win. The very best solution is one that benefits everyone: the customer, the business, the relationship, the planet, and us. How do we get to benefit from those daily transactions with customers? Perhaps we receive a commission on sales completed. Perhaps we benefit from repeat purchases made by our regular customers. Perhaps we are sent a stream of new customers by our loyal customer fan base. Perhaps we get to go home with a warm feeling inside after a day of incredible conversations with marvelous customers. Perhaps we get to become more and more skillful at dealing with customers as each day passes. How does it get better than that? Maybe it's win, 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 wine, which is one that benefits all of the above whilst enjoying a glass of wine. Please don't quote me on this one. A word of caution. Some people call their agreements win-win when they're really not. They're actually compromises. For example, split the difference or meet me in the middle. The problem with this type of solution is that neither side is getting what they truly want. Win-win is when both sides get everything they're looking for. And that takes time, energy, creativity, determination, and a belief that a true win-win is possible. Or even a true win-win-win-win-win. One final point on looking for the win. Larry Gelwicks was coach of the Highland rugby team for 36 years. In that time, his team recorded 419 wins and only 10 losses. The movie Forever Strong is based on his story. Gelwicks came up with the WIN acronym for What's Important Now, which is about making decisions based on what's required of us in this moment. Ignore what just happened. Ignore what the other team is doing right now. The only thing to take all of our focus is what's important now for us in this moment. Action tips. Look for ways to ensure that what you do always benefits the customer, the business, the relationship, the planet, and you. Keep your awareness in the present moment and keep asking yourself what's important now. And if you don't always feel that you achieved a win-win-win-win-win, it's often impossible to see the bigger picture. Trust that everything is working out perfectly. Play the long game. Have you noticed that when you go to a big city full of tourists, i.e. customers that won't ever be seen again, the service isn't that great sometimes? I'm aware that I've just made a huge generalization, which is unfair to those businesses that do things properly, but I'm not talking about them. My point is that delivering outstanding service is about playing the long game. What do I mean by playing the long game? Think about what it's like where you work. How would you act differently if it was your business? And what would you expect from those around you? Would you care about the customers more? Would you make more effort? Would you challenge colleagues if they weren't treating customers well? Playing the long game is about considering the future of the business. Aspects such as repeat purchase, word-of-mouth recommendations, and the reputation of the business out in the world. And let's not underestimate the power of social media to spread news. It can have a huge impact, as United Airlines found out to their cost. In 2008, musician Dave Carroll claimed that United Airlines damaged his $3,500 guitar during a flight. United failed to reach an agreement with the disgruntled Mr. Carroll, and as a result of this dissatisfaction, Dave Carroll composed the song United Breaks Guitars. This was posted on YouTube and attracted 500,000 views in 3 days and went on to reach 15 million views by August 2015. United's stock market price fell sharply, costing shareholders $180 million. Had United been playing the long game, they might well have considered the potential impact of not being committed to resolving a customer's complaint. And I wish I could say that United had learned from this episode, but unfortunately, in April 2017, a passenger was forcibly dragged off a United Airlines flight that had been overbooked by them. On the other hand, social media can be a very powerful way to spread positive customer service stories. One of my favourites is about Virgin Trains. A passenger on board a UK West Coast express train found himself in the loo without toilet paper. He decided to tweet Virgin Trains to ask for some. They responded straight away, asking him which coach number he was in. Once they had obtained that vital piece of information, they were able to send a member of staff to the rescue, delivering a fresh supply of toilet paper to the passenger in need. The story was reported in all the national newspapers in the UK and went viral on the internet. A victory for Virgin Trains, who said that they were determined not to let this issue become Poogate. So we know that playing the long game is thinking as if we're the owner of the business and are considering the company's wider reputation. What else? Building a loyal group of customers helps to secure the future of the business. What do we mean when we describe customers as loyal? Is it the same as repeat purchase? No. A repeat purchase might be due to our price or our availability being better than another supplier's. As soon as that changes, the customer will be off. That's not loyalty. Loyalty is a customer's desire to do business with a particular supplier based on how they feel. It's an emotional connection based on trust. When customers are loyal, they purchase from us even if we are not the cheapest supplier. They also recommend us to their friends, relatives, and associates. And they are more likely to forgive us when something goes wrong because of all the goodwill we've built up. Remember the relationship bank account in the previous section. They are more likely to purchase accessories and add-ons, and they are more likely to use us for other purchases beyond the primary product or service. How do we create loyal customers? By ensuring to the best of our ability that every purchase the customer makes is the best choice for them, based on what they want it to do, in other words, their needs, and not based on which product we are trying to shift, or which one has the most profit, or pays us the highest commission. Sure, we could make more profit this time, but it's better to think of the lifetime value of a long-term loyal customer and help them make the best choice for them. That will keep them coming back to us. Also, by building a strong relationship with every customer, getting to know them well beyond purely the transaction, remembering facts about them, family members, pets, hobbies, likes, dislikes, etc. Also, by flexing our style of approach to suit each customer individually so that they feel comfortable with us. After all, customers base their purchasing decisions principally on feelings, by being easy to do business with, and by showing that we care about them. One final suggestion: obtain customer testimonials and show them to new customers. With these letters, emails, and social media posts, we can start to create a sense of community amongst our customers, an unofficial club that new customers will be drawn to and want to be part of. Action tips. Look for opportunities to astound customers. They will do our marketing for us through word of mouth and social media, etc. Invest in relationships with the customer. Remember the lifetime value of every customer, and care for customers as if it was your own business. Stand out. One of my biggest passions in life, actually the biggest passion, is people being who they really are. Yes, being who they really are. In my life, I've found that playing small doesn't serve anyone, especially not ourselves. In much of my life, I've been keeping myself hidden. The real me, that is. Much of this was the result of underconfidence and fear of being judged by others. As I've grown a bit older, I feel that the opinions of other people matter less to me. And actually, much of my head chat wondering what will people think of me was made up. I was acting as if it was true, without questioning it. In my experience, people aren't nearly as interested in my choices in life as they are in their own. You're probably much more interesting, but this principle may apply to you too. When I'm a customer, I love it when the person I'm dealing with seems connected with who they really are and is prepared to connect with me from that energy. There's something really compelling about it, perhaps because it's not so common. What would it take for you to bring more of yourself, your true essence, to your work? What could happen as a result? Not just for you, but for your colleagues and customers too. One of the great things about being more fully ourselves in the world is that it's an invitation and an encouragement to others who may feel the urge to express themselves more fully too. So what happens when we put this into practice? Well, firstly, our customers remember us for the right reasons. We all enjoy telling the occasional war story of how really terrible something was. But how often do we tell a story of how amazing the service was? Let's start spreading more stories that feature us being awesome at our jobs. Also, we eliminate competition. That's because there's only one of us in the world. Even if people can buy our product or service elsewhere, we are the unique factor. They can't duplicate us. And we chip away at all the blandness in the world. Have you noticed how our shopping centres are 90% the same, irrespective of the town or city we happen to be in? The number of independently owned businesses offering a distinctly different range of products seems to be reducing. For me, this can't be a good thing. As customers, we want more choice. We want to buy clothes and shoes and items for our home that enable us to express our own personality. Even if we work in one of the 90% chain stores, we can bring our personality and unique approach to the customer interaction. As the comedian Billy Connolly once said, let's eradicate beigeness. And finally, as a result of bringing all of the above into the world, we have a more enjoyable and fulfilling life, whether we are the customer or the service provider. I found that once I took a deep breath and started being my true self, people were able to sense the real me, which made it much easier for us to connect. So be brave, be bold, be who you really are. Action tips. Take a deep breath and bring your amazing true self to the work you do every day. Add your own unique personal value to the products and services you offer. The experience with dealing with the real you will make everything more compelling to customers. And create astounding stories that become legendary in the realm of customer service. See in your mind yourself being held up as a shining example of how it can be done. Pay it forward. Most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying when there seemed to be no hope at all. Dale Carnegie. You may have noticed a recurring theme throughout this book, an invitation to be of service to others, to make a contribution, and to make a positive difference in the world. In this final section, we take that concept to another level. One of my all-time favourite movies is Pay It Forward, starring Kevin Spacey and Helen Hunt. If you haven't seen it, I thoroughly recommend it. The big idea is that when we're on the receiving end of a good deed or a kind gesture from someone else, instead of paying them back, which is transactional, we pay it forward. In other words, we do something for someone else and ask them to pay it forward, thus beginning a chain reaction. A whole movement sprung up after the release of the movie around the concept of selfless giving. My personal favourite is Pay It Forward Day, which is on the internet at payitforwardday.com. How does this concept apply to you? My goal here is to help you to understand, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that you really can make a difference in the world far beyond the people and events you interact with personally on a daily basis. You can do something, perhaps a small act of kindness, that changes someone's outlook on the world. And who knows where that could lead? A customer or colleague hugged by you, whether metaphorically or physically, could lead them to make all sorts of life decisions differently. Mastering your life. I found that it's a good feeling to know about a subject or to possess a certain skill. As I said earlier in the book, I'm a bit of a personal development junkie, passionate about learning and personal growth. My bookshelf is full of positive literature, and that's not counting the books I've passed on to others. However, I found that teaching something to someone else is quite a different kettle of fish. When I began my business coaching and facilitating workshops about 20 years ago, I discovered that it requires a much deeper level of understanding and a higher level of skill. In fact, we need to be really living what we teach in order to have any credibility. People can spot a fake a mile away. Therefore, one of the best ways for you to really master the material I'm covering in this book is for you to teach it to others. Not necessarily standing at the front of a training room, but don't rule that out. No, my challenge to you is to become a customer service champion, a shining example of how it can be done. I encourage you to inspire others through your commitment to excellence. That doesn't mean just reciting what you've read here. It's inviting you to share your take on it. Describe to others what you've found that works for you in your daily life. Share your stories, your successes, your challenges, and your journey. It's so important to remember that these skills are not just for using at work. They are for every part of your life, with your loved ones, friends, neighbours, relatives, the young and not so young. They are for you to become a better partner, parent, sibling, and member of society. Someone who influences others. Someone who listens to others without judgment and to whom others pay attention. How? You show empathy for how others are feeling. You forgive. You are interested in their world. You are playful and have fun. You take responsibility for the way things are, and you are proactive in bringing about positive change. The possibilities for you are infinite. I wonder what you could create. Action tips. Watch the movie Pay It Forward, or watch it again if you've already seen it, and ask yourself what might be possible for you in your daily dealings with customers. Think of one random act of kindness as you look around you right now. Who could you hug, buy a coffee, pay a compliment to, or do some other small, potentially life-changing deed? And when others appreciate your kindness and offer to pay you back, encourage them instead to pay it forward. There's the hug. Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. Seneca. Deep down, most people would like a hug. Customers, colleagues, maybe everyone. If you offer one, some people might feel a bit embarrassed, and if so, they'll say no. But deep down, many of those people would really like to say yes. Be the change the world needs. Reach out, take a risk, and don't take it personally if they turn you down. It's nothing to do with you. It's just where they're at in their lives at that time. For the past few years, I've been involved in Global Free Hugs Day, held each year on the first weekend in May. People around the world go into public places, shopping centres and beaches and town squares, etc., and hold up signs saying free hugs. Many people will walk past without stopping. Quite a few people stop and accept the free hug being offered. Sometimes it's a very pleasant experience, and sometimes it's magical. When it is, I'm convinced that another life has been changed for the better. One elderly man said to a member of the free hugs group that I was part of, "That's the first hug I've had in 20 years. It was obvious that he was quite emotional. Some people walk past saying no thanks to the offer of a hug. Then we see them change their mind and come back. You can watch videos showing Free Hugs Day on our website at servicewithahug.com. The thought occurred to me that perhaps we need a Free Hugs for Customers Day. And then I thought, that's thinking a bit small. Maybe every day needs to be a Free Hugs for Customers Day, whether it's an actual physical hug, follow the energy on that one, or a metaphorical hug by handling customers skillfully, understanding customers emotionally, and guiding customers with integrity. Visit the Service with a Hug website for details of how you can obtain a Free Hugs lapel badge. When you wear it, your customers will know that you're happy to give them a hug. All they need to do is simply ask. I do hope that you've enjoyed listening to this audiobook and that you found it useful and inspiring. Author and life coach Steve Chandler says, "You read a book once for information and twice for transformation. It's up to you." Please stay in touch and share your stories. You can make contact through the website at servicewithahug.com and via social media. The links are also on the website. All the very best on your journey.